all the cool kids go.
Okay.
It's like right under the roadway there. It's on the south side, outside.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, it's
Beautiful
outside.
this time of year.
Yeah, it's beautiful for interns. None of the interns came in today. They all called in dead. So Cy's been killing it. We got to say thank you to Cy Benson for driving it in the control room today, keeping us pieced together here. And it's a really interesting day here with the politics of Washington. Balance of power is going to be on fire today.
Oh my! I don't know how.
I don't know how do they put it together.
I think they just kind of 5 of noon. They say, okay, this is how we're going.
And we'll have to see on that. Right now, we're up 59 points on the Standard & Poor's futures. Dow futures up 393. Those levels, 6,004 on futures, not cash market, on SPX. 42,700 on the Dow. Really, really quite extraordinary. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast, and thank you for that. Bloomberg Surveillance.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we are live streaming on Rumble, on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and on YouTube. So please help support the work and share the links and ask your social media to follow me. Greatly appreciate it. I also have other channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. So please subscribe to all those channels. Sometimes I get strikes on YouTube and I have to switch to the channel on which one I'm going to be doing the live streaming on, because YouTube has lots of censorship, unfortunately. So, but thank you for joining. We do have, today was jobs economic data that was released at 8:30. We're going to be going over that later in the broadcast, but it beat expectations. And the dollar is strengthening relative to the euro and to the Japanese yen. Japanese yen is trading at 144.83. I'd like to see it above 145. The ones that have been watching me, I've been saying that if it's above 145, international stress is much less. If it's going below 140, then there's a lot of international stress. in the financial markets. VIX is trading really well here. It's in the 17 range. So that's very good. The New York session hasn't opened up yet. We need about another 6 minutes or so. The futures market in the S&P 500 is $6,001.75. Maybe we get above 6,000 today. Maybe in the intraday trading in the cash market. BITO is trading at 20.43. That's the ETF for Bitcoin. Oil's trading at 63.76. Natural gas is trading at 3.7. I'm shorting oil and gas, so we'll see what happens when the markets open up here. Now, other things to take a look at here. Gush is trading at about 21.26. Yesterday, it closed at 20.87. So it's definitely bullish for the energy sector in terms of the companies. And there's definitely since the news that came out, oil futures have been going up, but I suspect that it's going to come back down. The reason why I'm saying that is that I think the trading range for oil is now at about 62 to about 64 handle. So like a 62 to a 64 handle. We're at 63.74. There's a resistance point at about 65. So there's not that much more upside to the oil market. I mean, it could go up to maybe another dollar or so a barrel, and then come back down. And usually when it comes down faster than when it goes up. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. And what else is going on let's see, Bitcoin I think is probably trading below 105. Let's see. Bitcoin's trading at 103.9. That's the weird thing about what I'm noticing with Bitcoin. Right now, it's trading below, the 105 mark. And I would have thought because of the crypto conference that they had, I think it was in Nevada, that we would have been closer to 110 than closer to 100. So let's see what happens here. The dollar index is at 99.18. And treasuries, the 30-year yield is at 4.935 and the 10-year yield is at 4.458. Things are stable. The price of the bonds are going down because the futures market's going up for the equities. So everything is just humming along here. Oil is trading at 54.58 and gold, which is the short ETF for natural gas, is trading at 23.28.
Comfortable, maybe just parking some money?
Well, at Ritholtz, we really like value. We especially like it because our investors are investing for 5 years, 10 years, decades down the road. And we want them to, have the smoothest ride possible because we're all human. We're trying to sleep at night. So we generally lean towards value, but we think right now is actually a smart time to lean away from those sectors with high expectations. I know this is a hard thing to say, but tech is at the top of that list. Obviously tech is being thrown around by a number of different factors right now, especially this morning. I mean, look at Tesla, but tech, I think people forget, is one of the highest exposed sectors when it comes to international revenue and cost of goods exposure.
Right.
And, if you have restricted trade policy there, then, tech is probably going to get hit in one way or the other.
Stay there, Kelly. We're going to come back to you. We need to get the markets open right now. We do a data check. Kelly Cox looks at equity, bonds, currencies, commodities with Barry Ritholtz at Ritholtz Wealth Management. So too do we. Futures up 57 right now. It's a 1% move. The VIX from that 20 weeks ago, the angst comes into a hugely bull market, 17.14 on the VIX. The yield space up off the jobs report, but then velocity to a higher yield, 4.93% in the 30-year bond, 4.46%, make it 4.47% in the 10-year yield. The 10-year real yield, 2.13 We stagger to the open. We stagger with John Tucker.
All right at the get-go, we are higher. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 323 points, a rise of about 0.8%. The S&P 500 53 points higher. That is up 0.9%. And right now, all 11 major industry groups in the S&P 500 are higher. The Nasdaq 100 getting the first trades there, 1% higher, up 222 points. Most actively traded in the early going shares of Tesla right now, 4% higher, followed by NVIDIA up just about 2%. And Graham Holdings, the third most actively traded stock, that is 3% higher. And that is your opening bell report. We check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Tom.
John Tucker, thanks so much. Kelly Cox with us with Ritholtz Wealth Management. Kelly, are we in a bull market? I just said that, and somebody sent a note in and said, Tom, it's not a bull market. Kelly Cox, are we in a bull market?
Yes.
Well, you asked the right person because I argue with my colleagues about this all the time. I take the investor's point of view. I look at it on a closing basis, and when it comes to closing prices, the S&P has not yet fallen 20% from a high. Now, you could say intraday that happened because it did, but I still think we're in a bull market. I'm not exactly excited and really optimistic about the future, but we are still in a bull market. And I think as long as we are, you do have to wonder if stocks can climb a wall of worry here.
Of course, so they always
Kelly,
have.
what do you think of the? Are you guys trying in your
buy.
portfolio? Are you trying to structure in a slower economy with some of your positioning here, or maybe something even worse? Or are you just saying, you know what, we're going to look through all this near-term noise and think about the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, we're doing the latter. We're looking through all this noise. We generally, I kind of go back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, how we build portfolios aimed towards stability and consistency. In a way, those portfolios actually do look like the kind of portfolio you want in a time like this, when job growth is slowing, when the economy is weakening, when there are a lot of reasons to be nervous out there. We lean into quality, we lean into value. We try to structure portfolios that can get you a consistent rate of return. So right now, we're really proud of our international exposure.
Right now, oil is trading at about 64.05, and we're going to be testing to see if my theory's right here, that there's going to be about a 64 handle where it's going to start to go back down. So I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to 64.75 and then starts to sell off.
I'm looking at the internet. Circle Internet Group, CRCL, up another 18% today. The stock was up 160% yesterday on its IPO. I don't know what this signals. I mean, I'd like to think it signals the IPO market maybe is in better shape than we thought. Callie, when you see a stock like Circle Internet, or just anything, but an IPO that trades up so much, what do you guys make of that?
Well, it at least shows the animal spirits are here. And I'm, again, a little confused as to why there are such strong animal spirits right now. I mean, maybe that's just the resiliency of the retail investor or of the everyday investor who, still feels like they're at a good place with their finances. Job market's weakening, but it's clearly it's clearly a little more bifurcated than we think. I don't think this lasts very long, especially with so much business uncertainty out there. But for now, the IPO window is open and investors are liking it.
Kelly, thank you. Kelly Cox is short notice, the Ritholtz Wealth Management. We like to get her in when we're up 1%. The Dow up 478 points, SPX up 58 points. This is an opening trade. We're 4 minutes into the day. 16 print on the VIX.
Yeah, that's.
I'm triple leveraged all cash. John, I mean, fractional shares, I'm just scared. I was going to buy a single share of Apple and I just couldn't pull the trigger.
And what was keeping you back?
What was keeping me back? 3 children need new things from Apple.
That's it.
What was keeping me back? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the market right now very quickly here. Again, the Dow up 471 points. We're going to go to a conversation here on Jobs Day. Somehow I think it's going to be somewhat of an optimistic conversation. Lori Michelle Chavez-Reimer is the 30th United States Secretary of Labor, of course, working for President Trump, surrounded by Marty Walsh of Boston. Julie Su is acting Secretary of Labor for President Biden, and she's from Oregon, and it's just a whole different feel. I mean, I sort of like this. I mean, usually cabinet people are from 3 zip codes in New York, Boston, Washington, wherever, and it's a whole different feeling out there, representing Hispanics in the West. Of course, she was elected to the Congress from Oregon, and she is, the nomination was placed in, and the only, she's our secretary.
Cal State Fresno.
Cal
Again,
State
another
Fresno,
product of those great California
schools.
Unbelievable.
Well said. And what's so important, there's a whole Teamsters dynamic. We interviewed them a while back. And just, it's a really interesting Secretary of Labor here in conversation on this Jobs Day. Let us listen to Lori Chavez de Remer.
Chavez de Remer. Thank you so much, Secretary, for joining us as we are on the heels of this May report where the U.S. added 139,000 jobs, beating estimates. But I would love to start with the decline in the size of the labor force, down 626,000, largest drop since 2023. Is this because the administration has shut down immigration?
Well, thank you, Anne Marie, for having me. We are excited, 139,000 new jobs, and that President Trump, with his dedication and his leadership, really has beat expectations for the 3rd month in a row. Our goal is to grow this economy and grow this workforce. And the president has done a wonderful job in accessing companies to invest in the workforce, and we're seeing it across the country. So while jobs are continuing to grow, and we might see a decrease at the federal level, which is another great thing that we've seen 22,000 jobs leave the federal public workforce, and we're seeing it at the local level. So there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot that we're excited about, and we couldn't be more excited for this economy in this 3rd month in a row of a growing jobs report.
What do you think is behind, though, the drop in the size of the labor force?
Well, what we want is to grow that labor force. We're seeing increases in construction jobs. We're seeing increases in transportation and in healthcare. While the manufacturing sector is holding steady, what we're excited about is the focus that the president has on the skilled workforce. Again, my part of this equation is to grow that workforce. And as we transition through this process of onshoring, and the president has done a wonderful job in negotiating some of these tariff talks, tens of trillions of dollars are being invested. This workforce is going to continue to grow.
The unemployment rate remains steady. A lot of economists will point to the fact that potentially it's for the wrong reasons, not because jobs are plentiful, but because workers are dropping out. Are you concerned that too many workers are dropping out, especially in some of these areas that are mostly filled with immigrants?
Well, certainly what we have seen in the last few months is that native-born Americans are the ones where the job growth is happening. That's exciting for the American people. We want to make sure that we're protecting the American worker first, and we want that labor participation rate to go up. I will tell you, unemployment is holding steady. That is a good thing for the American economy. We'll continue to focus on that. As the president's executive order, with 1 million apprentices across the nation, and also through an executive order that we're going to have the skilled workforce with AI, I'm telling you, and I'm confident that that workforce is going to continue to grow, and we're going to see these numbers continue to climb and unemployment rate continue to drop.
Do you foresee wage pressures potentially reemerging to fill jobs if there are fewer immigrants coming to the United States, which is a policy of this administration?
Well, I can tell you right now that, wage growth, hourly wage growth is up almost 4%. That's great for the American people, more money in their pockets. And with this one big, beautiful bill that the president is focused on, we are going to see no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Do you know what that does for a family of 4 who possibly can put more money in their pocket? I can tell you this, one big, beautiful bill equals one big, beautiful workforce. That's what I'm focused on, and I'm going to continue to work hard, get around this country, and deliver for the American people what the president promised them that he would do.
I guess my question, though, is if we have wage pressures reemerging, is there potentially a cycle where we can see higher inflation, makes it harder for things like the Federal Reserve to step in and potentially cut interest rates?
Well, certainly the president, again, is laser focused on growing the workforce. We're seeing unemployment hold steady. It's been holding steady for, really running between 4.0 and 4.2% over the last year. That's exciting for the American people. We are not seeing unemployment.
S&P 500 is trading at 6,008. VIX is trading at 17.04.
To hold steady and grow this economy.
The president posted on social media that America is, quote, hot, and he said 6 months ago it was ice cold. But 6 months ago, I'm looking at the non-farm payroll numbers from 6 months ago, we were at 323,000 and an unemployment rate even lower than we are today at 4.1%. That is what arguably many people would call a hot labor market. What is the president talking about when he says we weren't hot?
Well, under the last administration, we saw, for instance, manufacturing jobs take a tank over the last 20 years. That is what the president is bringing back. Hardworking, blue-collar Americans, where he's bringing labor and business together to grow the economy for the everyday average American. That's where the change in the focus has been. And so the labor market is growing steady, and he's correct. It is hot. And it is better than what we had in the past administration, 100%.
But manufacturing payroll numbers dropped 8,000 for the month of May.
But compared to the Biden administration, they've grown. They have continued to hold steady. That is the difference when he stays laser focused on the American people and the American worker. I'm telling you, as I go around this country and I visit, the excitement in the labor force and in the participation rate, we're seeing that increase. Students, young people, they're excited to get back into the labor market. So it's going to take some time. But I can tell you, if we stay focused on the American people, I don't make a decision at the Department of Labor unless I know it's going to benefit the American worker first.
You mentioned federal workers and those employment numbers dropping off. When you think about DOGE working inside the labor force, has it changed given the fact that Elon Musk has now left the administration, and also given the fact that he's having this pretty massive breakup with the President of the United States on social media?
Well, the focus of DOGE was government efficiency. Again, that's what the president promised the American people, that he was going to save them their hard-earned tax dollars. Again, the focus is to make sure that we're being efficient with their tax dollars and still growing the economy. Listen, we can have distractions all day long. This jobs report of 139,000 new jobs, I think, is the primary focus today, because that is what matters to the everyday workers who get up every morning and understand.
All right, right now, that resistance level of 64.75 on oil seems to be proving correct here. It maxed out at about 64.72 and then started coming back down. It's trading at 64.48.
DOGE, our own agencies, because again, for the American people, they want to understand that when we have their hard-earned tax dollars, that we're spending it wisely and we're saving them dollars where there's inefficiencies. And I'll continue to focus on DOGing my own agency.
Most likely it's going to try to retest it, fail, and then come back down. Probably go back down, test 64 as a support level and break it, and then go trade in the 63 handle range. That's going to take a couple hours, though, for it to pan out.
Reserve need to be cutting interest rates when you're telling us that this is a really fantastic and healthy labor market?
Well, that's the focus, right? And sometimes you gotta have the stool stand on several different legs. The president does a wonderful job at negotiations. The president will have a conversation with the Treasury Secretary, and he will determine when it's time to put the pressure on to lower those interest rates to make sure that we're still adding to the American economy and protecting the American worker.
Thanks so much for joining us, Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-Durima. Really appreciate your time. Shanali and Matt, I'll send.
Anne Marie Horton, thank you so much there with the Secretary of Labor after.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support the work that I do, and also help support your health and wellness. Not only am I telling you what's going on in the markets and how I am seeing some of the profitability there, but I'm also telling you how to improve your health and wellness. All right? Something that I do every day. So please go to my store, help support the work that I do, and help support your health and wellness. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Now, let's talk about a foundational piece for the health protocol. A probiotic is really important, very important. As a foundation for your health protocol. Another piece of that foundation should be a multivitamin. I have a great multivitamin that we'll be talking about shortly here. But I have two different types of probiotics. I have the veggie cap version, which is in my hand, and a powdered version. I take the powdered version because I take a lot of different supplements that are in a powdered formula. And that's like collagen and boomer boost and gladiator barley and lignans, right? So it's just easier for me to mix them all together for my lunch and take them. But some people don't do that. So go to my store, get the powdered version or the veggie cap version of the probiotic and take it every day. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to absorb your nutrients. You're going to have less inflammation at the gut level. You're going to improve your immune system at the gut level. You're going to have a better gut biome. Your communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain are going to improve. And you're going to be able to improve your sleep. You're going to be able to improve your concentration. You'll be less irritable. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotics. It's really important for your health. It also helps to improve your skin and your hair and your nails. You can see the manifestations of a poor gut biome within your skin, just the way the skin is aging. So please go to my store and get the probiotic. Now, we were talking about, if I can find it. A multivitamin as another part of the foundation. The multivitamin is an easy digest multivitamin on my store. Take it every day. And it has the vitamins as to be the cofactors that you need for proper enzymatic activity. Now, your enzymes have a certain three-dimensional shape because it's a protein. An enzyme is a protein. And it will have a certain function. It needs cofactors to change its three-dimensional conformation for it to perform better. That's the reason why you need the multivitamins. So please go to my store, get this multivitamin. It's easy to digest. It's the cofactors you need for enzymatic activity. And that's a great foundation to build off of. And you just add different supplements on my store and customize based on what you want to do. All right. But taking this with the probiotic is a great foundational start to improving your health, slowing down the aging process, and having longevity and vitality. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, and you get $5 off any order. Now, let's do a market update here. The S&P 500 is trading at 6,012. VIX is trading at 1707. The euro is trading at 1.13. Oil is trading at 64.40. So it's panning out like how I thought it would. BITO is trading at 20.9293. BITO is the ETF for Bitcoin for the ones that don't know. But the thing is longing, all right? BITI is to short it. What I am surprised at is Bitcoin still is not getting closer to the 110 mark. It's closer to the 100 mark. It's trading at about 103, right? 103,000 a token. So that's surprising to me. All right. There just seems to be like it's just hovering there. And it's just like, where's the money flows? Now, it could be that all the money flows are going into, the traditional stocks and ETFs, and wait that out. And then there'll be, further inflows into crypto. That could be, and everyone's trying to catch up. Because think about it, about 7 weeks ago, when we had the major market sell-off and the S&P 500 was trading at 4,830, people were like, get out of the market and, get out of treasuries, get out of dollar, and, everything's going to go to hell, and, go to gold or go to Europe or whatever. And I stated, don't bet against the United States. And 7 weeks later, we are trading above 6,000 intraday. It's possible that we close over 6,000. I also said in July, we are going to have an all-time high on the S&P 500. Now, just think about this. You've been watching me for 7 weeks since this sell-off, all right? And I told you exactly what to do. And things panned out. So you should take that and what I'm telling you about your health. And what you're gonna notice is that you're aging slower. You're gonna be able to mitigate chronic issues that are the two biggest chronic issues in the United States is diabetes and heart disease, and most of it is self-induced. There's a lot of people looking to find excuses, but most of the chronic problems that we have in the United States is self-induced. All right? And heal your body. But not just that, you know, if you pay attention to what my observations of this, because I've been doing this for a long time, it pans out. It works. So just listen and do, and you'll be fine. All right? So people would say, well, what are you doing? All right, I tell you, there's a resistance level and there's a support level. All right? And I tell you where I think those are. Now, in terms of your health and wellness, I'm telling you exactly what I take. And if you can't afford everything that I take, which I totally understand because not everybody has money. I get that. I tell you how to do it in an affordable way. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now let's talk about, we were talking about brain function because of a good gut biome, and you'll get better sleep, right? Well, Good Night Formula is a supplement that you should be taking every night. And what that's going to do, it has tryptophan and melatonin in it, GABA and passion flower. And what this will do is it'll allow you to go into deep sleep, and REM sleep in about 3 cycles is what you need, roughly. Anywhere from 3 to 5, but 3 is like the minimum. But by getting those cycles of sleep, you're going to detoxify your body, be well rested, and consolidate memory. And over time, you're going to notice that your body's healing. You'll have better memory. You'll have more mental acuity. Your body, your overall body is detoxifying, not just your central nervous system. And you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night Formula. One major part of the anti-aging protocol is proper sleep. Super important. So if you're chronically sleep deprived, you're most likely doing damage to your overall body. You have probably higher cortisol levels, probably have a higher glucose level. That's inflammatory. Those are inflammatory, right? And causes damage. And when you have chronic inflammation and you have chronic cortisol levels, what happens is that your body is wearing down, right? And elevated cortisol levels chronically actually becomes immunosuppressive. So it weakens your immune system, even though there is this chronic inflammatory process that's taking place. So by calming your body down, going into parasympathetic, getting proper sleep, you're bringing down those cortisol levels. By bringing down those cortisol levels, now you're slowly bringing back up your immune system. And you're controlling your blood glucose levels in the process, because elevated cortisol levels usually increases your glucose count. It's really simple. Get proper sleep. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And oh, by the way, you pay attention, and you went into the market when I told you to, you would have made money. But all these other podcasters that said, buy gold, get out of the US market, run to China, go to Europe. Never, I want you to write this down. Take a piece of paper, take a pencil or a pen, and write this down. Never bet against the United States. Never, ever, 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 ever. And you will be fine.
And Tom Keene, what I could do a shout out right now to our team. We blew up the show like 7 times this week.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric and the interns, the 3. And also thank you, Peter, out at YouTube for pointing out Pershing Square Bar.
Yeah,
is where the
exactly.
interns go.
That's
Buzzy
solid spot.
Buzzy O'Keefe's place.
Yep.
You know, they go down there. They have a drink called Liquid Lunch.
Okay.
It's like a gura. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like a martini with onions.
It's a good spot right by Grand Central. Quick
When Ed
escape.
Ludlow's in town, that's the first place he goes. Is
Yep.
a happy hour at Pershing Square. Joining us from San Francisco now, our self-driving fiend, Edward Ludlow, here on Tesla. Ed, I don't want to go.
For the ones that are watching the oil market closely, so intraday after the news announcement, the oil peaked at about 64.72 for WTI. This is the CL contract. So, and it broke 64.50 as it was coming down, and now it's trying to retest. And I suspect that it will retest and peak lower than 64.72, and then it'll start to sell off, and then try to find some support at 64, and then that will fail, and it'll start to have a 63 handle. But that's going to play out probably. We probably won't see this until about 12 o'clock, maybe 12:30. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. But I think that my gut is that a 64 handle is probably the upper limit of the trading range for oil right at this moment in time. For probably the next week or so. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Natural gas is trading at 3.692. I'd like to see it trade at about 3.64. 3.62.
Kind of what's happening here, and I'll make it about the president and Musk. The big point of the volatility on Tesla shares is that the Trump trade, as it related to Tesla, was a bet that the friendship between Elon Musk and the president of the United States would result in federal level policy, frameworks, regulation, call it what you will, that would allow Tesla to do the future that you and I are debating now, put more vehicles on public roads that don't have anyone in the driver's seat. And until you have that at critical mass of volume, most policymakers would agree, you're not going to let the insurance bit is kind of quite distant. I love the question because we never talk about insurance.
Ed, what's it like for the folks at Tesla? Is Elon Musk really back? What are you hearing from the company?
I think since the Doge term officially ended, what I'm hearing most consistently is that Musk has been, at a minimum, equal parts focused on SpaceX and XAI, and not done what he said publicly, which was a greater proportion of his time spent at Tesla. Remember, he said that on a quarterly earnings call of that company.
Yeah, but the thing is Tesla owns robots. They build the robots, and XAI is going to be feeding those robots. Trust me. He's building systems that are almost synergistic.
His top priority is artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And right now, XAI is the horse in his paddock that he...
Right, and the artificial intelligence is going to help with automation of these robots, especially on the assembly line. AI is also going to be important for self-driving vehicles. AI and this robotic technology he's designing is going to be important for planetary exploration. They're all interrelated. And then communication, you need communication. I mean, I'll tell you, Starlink could open up and be a major competitor to AT&T and T-Mobile.
The Dow up 531 points. We move on through the morning. Mark Ronson, the horns recorded in Brooklyn, New York. Good morning.
I have to always be careful with that damn show that they do because they play audio clips of songs, and I sometimes get a copyright strike. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get these deodorant bars. They're dual purpose. They're for males and females. It helps to detoxify your body, and you use it as a deodorant, so you don't smell. and you don't want to smell, right? Because it's starting to get hot outside. I think it's around, what's the temperature? Right now it's like 78 degrees. Almost, it's going to be in the 80s today in New York. So you don't want to smell, right? So use these deodorants, but it's going to help to detoxify your body. Why? Because it has essential oils from the Himalayas. It's all natural. It doesn't have any aluminum. Sometimes I get static. It drives me nuts. All right. So it has essential oils from the Himalayas, no aluminum, no baking soda. And by detoxifying your body on a regular basis, you're going to help your endocrine system. And you smell good. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have two varieties here: citrus and peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. These are made by Rainbow Herbals. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed these deodorants that are dual purpose. Use it as a deodorant every day, and it helps to detoxify your body, and it's all natural, made from essential oils from the Himalayas. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a couple bars for your household. Use it every day. It's for males and females. It's a great product. And before we go to the markets, get olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract is a dual purpose product. See, I like providing dual purpose products. Why? Because it's more cost effective for you. And when you're targeting multiple systems at the same time, there's a synergistic effect. So olive leaf extract helps your immune system and your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation. When you're bringing down inflammation, that's allowing for your immune system to be more energized, and it will be or more charged, if you want to use that term, and be able to allow for your body to heal, because your immune systems are super important for healing process. But also it will be at a full level to be able to fight anything that it comes in contact with. But if you're chronically inflamed, what happens is that cortisol levels start to go up. Chronic pro-inflammatory cytokines actually becomes immunosuppressive. You don't want that. All right, so you want to calm that down. Now, olive leaf extract also helps to control your lipid profile. So it's helping to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That means that if you have less LDL oxidized, you have less plaque buildup. Now, the oxidation of LDL is twofold. You need free radicals in your bloodstream, and you need inflammation. By bringing down the inflammation and taking other things that will soak up free radicals, you're radically changing your risk profile. You're bringing down your risk profile and developing further plaque. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the olive leaf extract. It brings down inflammation and helps your lipid profile. So that helps your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Super important. All right. S&P 500 is now trading at 6,006. So we're up for the day right now at 67 points on the S&P 500. And oil is trading at 64.41. Intraday peak was at 64.72. Natural gas is trading at 3.68. And like I said, I'd love to see a natural gas at 3.5, but I don't think we'll get there today. But I'd like to see a 3.62. Right now it's at 3.684.
After a 5-12 season, a lot of Steelers fans don't think Rodgers is the answer at QB.
Oh no, I just can't believe they put money into that guy.
He's kind of old. Like, we know that we're in a rebuilding phase. We should be getting someone that is younger, that we can work with.
Other fans approve.
It's about time. It's about time.
As fate would have it, the Steelers open their season against the Jets September 7th. Michael Wallace, CBS News.
Japan's latest attempt to conquer the commercial rush to the moon was a bust. Tokyo's iSpace says its lunar landing crashed after flight controllers say they lost communication. It happened less than 2 minutes before it was supposed to touch down. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence with Alex Steele and Paul Sweeney.
The real outperformance has been in U.S. corporate high yield.
Are the companies lean enough? Have they trimmed all the fat?
One person's chaos is another person's animal spirits.
Breaking market headlines and corporate news from across the globe.
Because we're trading in the 6,000 range, you need to look in the mirror, all right? And you need to turn your persona into Gordon Gekko, all right? Greed is good. Greed is right. Greed works, all right? I'm telling you, be bullish. Don't be afraid. Because you got all these people now that wish they were listening 7 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, even 4 weeks ago. And even institutional investors fucked up. They even fucked up 2 years ago when they kept on saying that we were going to be in a recession and it never happened. And then you have the economists that said the sky's falling. All of them were Chicken Little. I couldn't tell the difference between Stiglitz and Alex Jones. Everyone was saying the same thing. The sky's falling, my God. Dr. Paul Cottrell said, buy in. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Just stay patient. Guess what? That's exactly what happened. So Alex Jones was wrong. Rogoff was wrong. Stiglitz was wrong. All these famous economists out there. Wrong. Even Bernini. Wrong. They're all wrong. Don't bet against this major economic boom that's coming for the United States. But it's not going to be like a previous boom, economic boom for the United States. It's going to be something different, okay? And it's going to have its own kind of flavor. The big part is how does society and how does the job market bring in AI and how that changes the job market, all right? But there's going to be new businesses that are formed too. So at least in the short term, in medium term, it's very bullish. The question is what happens with this technology and it gets into warfare and drone. You can imagine how drones will be autonomous and it starts to get into Elysium kind of stuff, right? Will we have the ethics? Don't be so worried about AI and its ethics. Be worried about human ethics, the ones that are making the AI and the ones that are using the AI and our ethics. That's what you got to worry about. And mankind's ethics kind of like, it's hard to get them on a real good ethical path, right? This goes back to my diatribe about God, country, and family. But, let's try not to do that again today. But the point here is that we're going through a new era. And we're going to have challenges, but that's the American spirit. The American spirit is to get through those challenges. You could be swearing up a storm because it's difficult, or you could be depressed about it and all that, but don't give up. Put everything on the field, hold the line, and prevail. That is America. Don't bet against America. So if you hear these clowns that are like, sky's falling, Alex Jones, sky's falling, go into gold. Really? If you listened to Dr. Paul Cottrell, you would have gained 10%, 15%, maybe even 25% return, depending on when you put in that new capital into the market. Now, you can do whatever you want. Most people are fearful. They watch it. They go, yeah, that guy's right. But you didn't do anything. See, you make the money when you walk into the burning building. You don't make the money when you're running away from the burning building. All right? It's that simple. You got to be counterintuitive. You got to think opposite. You got to think about the negative space, not the positive space.
As Wall Street actually did anticipate. And of course, we know that people have really been looking at AI spend. And of course, Broadcom did miss some of the loftiest of expectations here. And this is a company that, of course, supplies chips to firms like Alphabet, Apple. So this is something that's really in focus here today as people are really just kind of parsing what's going on in the AI space right now.
To that point, though, you can make an argument that Broadcom was very well owned going into this. So how much of it was real disappointment versus just expectations so high? You were just so owned. You got to diversify. That's really question mark two. All right, let's wrap it up with Circle Internet Group.
Yeah, so of course, this is an IPO that happened yesterday, and we're seeing shares that are up as much as 25% today. They're climbing for double digits, but this is after yesterday on the opening day, we saw shares that surged 168%. So we're seeing this stock that's really on a tear right now, and we're seeing that the issuer more than tripled from its IPO price here, and this is one of the largest first-day pops that we've seen for any U.S. IPO that's raised more than $100 million since Sono Group actually came out in 2021, and that was actually a solar tech company that focuses on commercial vehicles. So really interesting results here.
Yeah, this is a real company, real revenue, real EBITDA, real free cash flow, real earnings. So the market, hopefully this will open the gates a little bit on the IPO market. Norma Linda, thank you so much for joining us. Cross equities reporter for Bloomberg News, Norma Linda. Let's get to this jobs number. I mean, better than expected, as John pointed out. Again, weaker from last period. Let's see what the world of the economists are thinking about this stuff. Steve Blitz, chief U.S. economist at TS Lombard. Hey, Steve, what was your takeaway from kind of the various parts of this jobs report today?
Yeah, I actually find the market reaction a bit perplexing because when you look at a lot of the pieces inside of it, it really shows a weakening job market. Strengthening one, right? All the job gains really were in restaurants and healthcare services. The rest of it was, added up to pretty much of a flat number. A good part of the decline was in employment. Look at the household survey was in the 16 to 24-year-olds. So people who are parents who are fretting about their children not being able to find jobs. They're right. It is a bad market for them. But when I look at a lot of the different things, the diffusion index and stuff like that, I see a number that reflects a lot of what ADP was saying, even though obviously ADP is typical. It's very off from the actual number. But it's a weakening trend, especially against the backdrop of the Beige report.
Right. Then you have President Trump saying basically to Fed Chair Jay Powell on social media saying the Fed's got to go for a full percentage point rocket fuel. Is this an economy that needs 100 basis point worth of cuts and rocket fuel?
Well, first of all, a real estate but I think there, the Fed's betwixt and between a tough spot here, right? Because inflation is higher, is running. If you look at it on a rolling 3-month basis, we're still stuck in this 2.5%, 3% range on core PCE inflation, where it was under 2%, pre-COVID. So we're still.
So I just exited out of my natural gas position. Now I'm watching very closely the oil position.
Not deflationary. Powell, in effect, has a hall pass here, right? So I think that, he knows he's out of a job in May. We're into legacy building on his part. And Trump said a few months ago, though, it changes every day with him, but he said no pain, no gain on the tariff side. So it's a tough spot for them. I think, though, we're going to get a dovish sentiment coming out of the June meeting. And I think chances of a July hike, well, I certainly don't think they're going to, cut, not hike. I don't think they're going to cut in July, but I think the odds are closer to 50-50 than what the market is priced in.
Steve, is this economy, I mean, how do you think this economy is going to perform in the back half of this year here? Is it a time when maybe some of these tariffs are going to catch up and we will see a market slowdown?
Yeah, because there's a couple of things here that, we're in a bit of a sweet spot. And I look to the third quarter, firms are just beginning to find out how much of these tariffs they can pass through to the final price, right? I mean, we saw this surge of buying, so they got a lot of stuff in inventory pre-tariff. They're going to sell it tariff plus their markup. What can they get through? How much can they get out? And then once they know that, then there's going to be a payroll question. Do we now have too many people? Do I have to shrink my firm? Whatever. We're going to find that out in the next few months. At the same time, you're getting the debt ceiling is going to get lifted in July, either as part of the budget or as a one-off, and then it'll be part of the budget a few months later. And that means that we've got to return to Treasury borrowing and Treasury borrowing plus, because they're going to borrow for the deficit in Q3, and then they're going to also have to borrow to put money back in the savings account, and that's going to put upward pressure on yields at a time when you don't really have a lot of sponsorship for the 10-year. So really yields are going to get pushed up. And also what I found is that there's a tailwind to the economy when you have a debt ceiling in place, because Treasuries.
Oil is now trading at 64.22. Let's see if it's going to continue to this. It definitely broke the 64.50 mark. All right, so around noontime, we're going to see probably a testing of the 64.
Sorry, not Chuck. We're going to speak to Chuck. Just kidding. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it, Steve. Steve Blitz joining us from TS Lombard. Thank you for breaking down that jobs number for us. The markets, though, obviously looking at this in a very positive way, with the NASDAQ up 1.3% and the S&P up 1.1%. And I just did a deep tease. Chuck Lieberman now will be joining us, co-founder and chief investment officer at Advisors Capital. He will break down what to do with this market. I mean, if we close at these levels, we are now in quote unquote a bull market. Bull bear, like, does that mean anything for us? I don't know, but that's going to.
And all of those institutional investors that said to go to China or go to Europe, wrong. Everyone said that the dislocation with the treasury market relative to the equity market was, a long-term issue. Wrong. The dollar was going to, radically weaken. Wrong. These people are clowns, total clowns. All right, let's take a look at some other news that's going on in the world or in the United States here. So let's take a look at what's going on here. This feud with Trump and Musk, it's crazy. There's two lines of thinking. And I'll tell you, the people that I've asked this, half of them think that it's all fake. Like it's some, fake wrestling match or something between Trump and Elon. And then there's another group that's just saying that this is Elon off the rails, and I'm starting to think the latter, not the former. I think Elon is off the rails. I think what happens is once you become super wealthy like that, you think that you have so much control, no matter how down to earth, how many t-shirts or whatever that someone wears. There's still, when you get into that uber wealth, there's an ego. It's about power. It's not necessarily so much about money. It's really about power. And because he was kicked out of the White House and he was so close to power, and now he doesn't have it, at least not in the political sense. Now it's just throwing around his money to influence people. Well, when he was intimately integrated with the whole Doge project, he saw the day-to-day workings. He was in the boiler room, you know, as people would say. I think he misses it. But the thing is that Trump, even though I support Trump, there is this kind of immature mentality between Trump and Elon. Both are very wealthy. Most people wish they only had just a fraction of their wealth. All right. Both have a lot of power in different realms, different ways. They are acting like kids. They're acting like children. These are grown adults. One's in his 70s. The other one is in his, I think Elon's 50. In his 50s, isn't he? I think he's in his 50s. So grow up. Move on. Don't worry about it. Now, if you're a shareholder of Tesla, you're pissed because your shares are going down. Now, if you're a trader, you would take a look at a leveraged ETF. And you probably would want to buy because there's this sell-off because of the Twitter feud and the tweet feud, or however you want to phrase it. And that sales will start to go up. Him aligning away from Trump is actually going to produce probably more sales, not less sales. So I would think that a leveraged ETF buying long Tesla would be a good idea. But that's more of a trader kind of mentality. For an investor, you're pissed off because share price went down. But eventually it'll start to come up, right? And this would be if cash is at hand, this would be probably a good idea to just purchase the stock. Traders probably would do a leverage kind of situation, short-term leverage situation. But in 3 months, the stock is going to go up. All right. Yeah, Tesla doesn't need the subsidies. Now, I'm sure Elon is pissed off that in terms of just the concept of trying to save money for the government, it doesn't seem fair to cut the subsidies for EV, but maintain subsidies for the oil and gas industry. I agree with him on this. But the thing is that he miscalculated his power on the totem pole. Yeah, he's the richest guy in the world on paper. He's bright, but he's not necessarily as savvy as he should be. And the oil and gas industry has been around for a long time, going all the way back to Rockefeller. All right? They know how the game's played because they've been playing it for over 100 years. And Elon doesn't understand this because he's so focused on this new world of code and new world of AI and EV and blah, blah, blah. The reality of the situation is making an EV vehicle is not cleaner than making a regular car. When you look at all the add-in costs to be able to extract the energy, make the car, the durability of the car, the resale value of the car, all the variables involved. All right. At the consumer level, at the producer level, and even at the environmental level, making EVs is not cheaper and is not better for the environment. I don't care. I don't care what you say. Buying an EV is not green because the mining that is needed to get these special rare earth lithium type metals compared to not just vertical drilling, but horizontal drilling for energy, where the footprint could be really small and less problems for the environment. Back in the day, during Rockefeller's day, you needed an oil well every 300 feet. You don't need that anymore. You can use one oil well, and you can go horizontal drilling, not just vertical. Now, which one do you think is going to be better for the environment? Horizontal drilling or these large mining pits to get lithium? And then the water usage is much higher for an EV. Well, people would say, well, it's not using gasoline, but you're most likely charging your car on a coal fire plant. Or people would say, well, I'm just charging my car on the energy produced by the nuclear power plant by me. Well, what happens if you have a Fukushima? That fat tail event, that flying pig, that black swan event will last for 10,000 years. Now, do you think it was green? I don't think so.
That's good context, Chuck. So based on that, if we were looking at a portfolio allocation, whether just in equities or if you want to wrap in, say, what a bond and alternative assets would look like, what's the best one right now?
Well, I still lean towards the stock market. I think you have to look beneath the surface there because of the Mag 7 and the top 10 PE multiple stocks. When you do that, the rest of the market is pretty cheap. And I think that's why there's this underlying bubbling up of demand for stocks. You can find a lot of companies, whole industries, that trade at PE multiples of under 12 or in some cases even under 10.
All right, I'm gonna go to Fox Business. They're talking about China might be right about this, expert warns. This was published about an hour ago, so let's just listen in. I have no idea what they're gonna say. Don't you like this off-the-cuff broadcasting?
Holding their anticipated call yesterday, President Trump called it a positive one, saying that the focus was on trade in rare earth minerals. Here's the president. Watch.
The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets and some other things. So I would say we have a deal and we're going to just make sure that everybody understands what the deal is. He invited me to China and I invited him here. We both accepted. So I'll be going there with the First Lady at a certain point, and he'll be coming here hopefully with the First Lady of China.
A new Treasury report from yesterday shows the U.S. did not label China as a currency manipulator. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I want to get your take. I mean, the list is so long, as we both know, Gordon, of the ways that China undermines the United States. Am I naive? And you know, maybe I am. Am I naive to be disappointed that President Trump did not, as far as I know, push Xi Jinping on the constant undermining?
She's not naive. Maria Bartiromo is not naive, but she has an annoying, high-pitched voice that's like so New York, right? Especially, a very opinionated woman, high-pitched noise from New York. But she's not naive. All right, let's continue. I'd really like to actually read the new book from Gordon Chang. But I believe the library doesn't have it yet, the last time I looked.
Of Americans and the constant efforts to kill American citizens?
Well, you're in very good company because almost everybody thought that there would be a trade agreement and that the Chinese would enforce it, but clearly they haven't. And President Trump needs to say that clearly. He needs to say, we had a deal. The Chinese agreed to lift the export ban on rare earths. They have failed to do so. And President Trump needs to then say, I'm imposing costs on China. Now, going to China is something that Beijing wants. from Beijing's point of view, that is the American president submitting to the Grand Celestial Court. And this is not going to help matters at all. So we need to be very clear about this. And I think that essentially the markets, they may not like what we need to do, but eventually we're going to need to do it because the Chinese right now believe that they do not have to comply with their May 12th agreement.
Yeah, but I'm not even just talking about trade. I mean, I'm talking about the smuggling of a deadly fungal. I'm talking about the flow of fentanyl, COVID cover-up. I'm talking about the constant, consistent efforts to kill American citizens.
I'm going to go over that whole issue with the fungi in a different show. I'll probably do that recording on probably Saturday night or Sunday morning. So stay tuned on that.
By the Communist Party of China. The detention hearing for one of the suspected Chinese bioterrorists accused of smuggling that dangerous pathogen into the United States was postponed until next week. The Michigan University researcher.
All right. We all know about what happened there, but because of the censorship with YouTube, I got to be very careful on how I cover this. So I am going to have to switch to a new video. Sorry, guys, but that's the way YouTube is. Just so you know, I had, 2 channels nuked during the crisis, all right? And unfortunately, it's hard to accrete new followers, especially if you have censorship of reach on YouTube. So that's the reason why I ask you to please make sure that you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Make sure you subscribe to all of them and ask for your social media to follow me because I do have some really important things to say, but YouTube doesn't like me saying them. So I got to be careful on how I say it and in what context and venue I say it in. So stay tuned for Saturday or Sunday. All right, let's listen to CNN about this feud.
All right, we do have breaking news this morning. What is President Trump's latest thinking about his explosive feud with Elon Musk? Well, joining us now, someone who just got off the phone with the president. CNN chief political correspondent Dana Bash joins us now by phone. Dana, what did he tell you?
Good morning, John. Well, he said that he's, quote, well, here's exactly what he said, quote, "I'm not even thinking about Elon. He's got a problem. The poor guy's got a problem." He said he won't be speaking to him for a while, but he said he wishes Elon Musk well. It was a short conversation. He didn't seem very exercised about it. And the interesting thing is, of course, the context of this is how many people who are in both men's orbits are trying to broker a peace deal, so to speak, and trying to get them to talk because of the concern about the fallout in so many directions. I mean, the blast radius from this fallout is really, really big and very wide. But right now, he said he's not interested in that, and he's moving on. And in typical Donald Trump fashion, John, he, before I even asked the question, wanted to talk about what he wanted the storyline to be today, about the economy. He was talking about gas prices. He said he was waiting for the jobs numbers to come out, which I think is about 2 minutes from now. So as he has done his entire career, not just political, but since he was a businessman, trying to push out the narrative and push out the story that he thinks is the most advantageous for him. And he thinks that's the economy now. But of course, we did briefly talk about Elon Musk. And the headline is he says he has no plans to talk to him right now.
Yeah, just to reiterate, again, because the story overnight has been a whole slew of people working to tone things down and to de-escalate. And he's telling you, I don't want to talk to him right now. And then he also threw that elbow saying that, the poor guy's got a problem. So, if Elon Musk is waking up this morning, he might read that, I imagine, as a new insult.
He might. He also said, I won't be speaking to him for a while, I guess, but I wish him well. He wasn't exercised. He didn't sound angry. He sounded, I guess, more resigned to where their relationship is right now. But he obviously is very well aware of the impact that this is having. And that's why I found it interesting that even though he seemed to try to put a stop to any speculation or, as you were saying, the entreaties from so many people for the two of them to make up, you're still trying to kind of shape the narrative about what is coming out of the White House. It's not an easy thing to do right now because literally the entire world is focused on this remarkable feud between the president of the United States and Elon Musk.
I will say that's 100% true. People were talking about it on the subway, on the sidewalks, everywhere I turned yesterday afternoon and evening. This was as 100% focus. Dana Bash sharing her interesting morning conversation with the President of the United States. Thank you very much. We'll let you get ready for Inside Politics, which airs at 12 p.m. Eastern. All right, with us now, Congressman John Garamendi, a Democrat from California. So, Congressman, I think you just heard the news. President Trump says of Elon Musk, he's got a problem. The poor guy's got a problem, says he has no plans to speak with him, but that he wishes him well. The last 24 hours, this fight has been explosive. I've heard some people call it catty. But what's the significance from where you sit? What does this matter to the country and to the policy that you have voted on and will be voting on again?
It's extremely important. We can get caught up in the tit for tat and back and forth with a tweet here or there. But the reality is this is going to have a significant impact on a very, very crucial piece of legislation, which in my view is an absolutely horrible piece of legislation. That's the big ugly bill or the big beautiful bill, depending upon how you look at it. The reality is that legislation is seriously impacted by this fight. You get past the various personality issues involved, and Musk is pointing out that the bill has very, very serious consequences for our national debt. And I just overheard the speaker a moment ago talking about the beautiful cuts, the largest cuts ever. Well, those are...
Just to interject for the ones that are home gamers, the futures market for oil is trading at 64.58. Just went up 64.60, and so it broke the 64.50 bear support level, and it came down a little bit to about 64.31, and then came back up above the 64.50. So it's retesting, and this is that double top, I think, is starting to emerge here. It's at 64.61 right now. We'll see. We'll see if it breaks. The intraday high was 64.72.
15 million people lose their health care, school lunch programs, veterans programs, programs that Americans depend upon, and international programs all being slashed and destroyed in that legislation. So this is really, really significant beyond the personalities involved. It's going to have a serious effect, and in my view, be helpful in, either killing or causing that legislation to be seriously amended.
So John Garamendi, a senior Democrat, saying that Elon Musk may be helpful to you and your political desires, at least insofar as that bill goes. I want to read you something. Again, there are a lot of personalities involved here. People have been wanting to know where the vice president stands on this, because at one point, Elon Musk endorsed a tweet that said that the president should be impeached and J.D. Vance should take over. Vance tweeted, "There are many lies the corporate media tells about President Trump. One of the most glaring is that he's impulsive or short-tempered. Anyone who has seen him operate under pressure knows that's ridiculous." What do you think of that analysis from the vice president?
I wouldn't expect him to say anything that would be detrimental to the president, and he didn't. The reality is that Trump changes his mind every other hour. You take a look at the tariff issues. One day it's this way, the next day it's that way. We're going to cut a deal. No, we're not going to cut a deal.
But how is that any different than anybody that lives in New York?
The inconsistency of policy from the president is very, very detrimental to the United States, to the economy, and really to our national security.
On the subject of national security, and you are on the Armed Services Committee, President Trump yesterday had this to say about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and where it stands right now.
But sometimes you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other and they're fighting in a park. And you try and pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while.
Okay, so he said sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while. Then overnight, Russia unleashed one of its most aggressive air attacks on Ukraine since the initial invasion. So what do you think Russia is hearing in this?
Well, he's hearing that Trump is not going to push Putin, not going to push Putin to stop it. And this is the inconsistency that I was talking about a moment ago. The previous day, he was talking about millions or hundreds of thousands of people being killed, soldiers being killed, how terrible it was. And now it's a schoolyard or a fight between a bunch of kids. It's that inconsistency that is so troublesome here. The attack was not just an attack on Ukraine. It was an attack on the urban areas of Ukraine. It was an attack on the children. It was an attack on the civilians of Ukraine. It wasn't. Ukraine went after Russian airplanes. Russia, Putin is going after civilians. He is bombing the apartments. He's bombing the urban area.
Infinity sales declined 10% in 2024 year over year, according to the vice president of Infinity. For ones that don't know, that's a car. It's a vehicle.
Are going to be diverted to the Middle East. You go, what in the world is that all about? It's this inconsistency. Bottom line here is it's absolutely critical to our national security and really to the security of Europe and the world that Ukraine has the support it needs to be successful in its fight against Russia. We need to understand what Putin really wants to do. He wants to rebuild the Soviet Union. He wants to reestablish the Warsaw Pact in which Russia dominates Eastern Europe. This is a direct attack through Ukraine on NATO. If in any way Ukraine becomes a puppet of Russia, or it becomes a part of Russia as it once was, then the next step is Eastern Europe, and that is NATO. This is the moment. This is the time in which the United States has to stand with Ukraine and with Europe and make absolutely certain that Putin doesn't get his wish, which is the reestablishment of the Soviet Union.
Congressman John Garamendi from California, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
All right, let's play a little bit of CNBC. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great structural nano silver soaps that I have. These soaps, you can get it in charcoal tea tree, lemongrass, peppermint, and lavender. All right, so get a couple bars for your household, or a few bars. Help support the work that I do. These videos are for free. I give you lots of information, and the products that I have on my store are very high quality and help with your health and wellness. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the soaps and improve your health and wellness. Support the work. Discount 5 is a discount code that you can use, and you'll get $5 off any order. Another great supplement that I have is magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is a dual purpose product. It's going to help with your immune system, but also magnesium is very important for brain function. And magnesium helps the efficacy of D3, vitamin D3. So please go to my store, get the magnesium and zinc, boost up that immune system, boost up that brain function. Super important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos.
Speak this week. We're getting some fresh comments from Governor Bowman just hitting the tape. And for that, we're going to turn to our Steve Leisman. Busy morning, Steve.
Carl, you're correct, Governor Bowman, but she is the newly approved vice chair for bank supervision. not sworn in yet, so she's still Governor Bowman. But the important thing is, this is her first speech after being approved by the Senate, and she's promising a broad review of bank regulations in the United States. She says the core principles of regulation should be pragmatism. She advocates tailoring bank regulations that is more specific by the kind and size of bank, reevaluating the guidance that the Fed and agencies give to the banks, as well as ratings and review of capital, which may be the most important. She says regulators should look at total capital requirements, not do them specifically one by one and check boxes. So Fed will soon publish a proposal to address concerns with the enhanced supplemental leverage ratio. It's an important thing. I can explain it at length some other time. Bowman says they'll review the community bank framework, including capital requirements, and suggest broad review of the Dodd-Frank Act. One quote from her speech: the task of policymakers, she says, and regulators is not to eliminate risk from the banking system, but rather to ensure that risk is appropriately and effectively managed. Just one thing I would add to your jobs report, guys, is just looking at all of this right now. It looks pretty much like the market still thinks the Fed cuts in September. They can take off June and July because it's in line. There's no crisis when it comes to jobs, but I agree with Sarah's take that there does look to be some, I guess, incipient weakness.
All right, let's play.
President Trump and Elon Musk.
And everybody's wanting to talk about that. All right. Let's listen to this one.
Let's get more on the White House reaction to the jobs report. Joining us is Council of Economic Advisors Chair Stephen Myron. You really think the Fed can cut 1 full point in this environment, Stephen? The market is going the other way.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I mean, look, you know, inflation is very well behaved. Core inflation in the last couple of prints was at the lowest level since March of 2021, right? So that's undid all of the Biden administration's inflation. And inflation's pretty well behaved. There's no evidence whatsoever of, you know, incipient reemerging inflation threats. And I think that we do have to acknowledge that the president has a really good track record of being right on monetary policy. He was right in 2019, 2018, saying that inflation was not a threat. Consensus eventually came to his view. He was right in 2021 that inflation was going to reemerge, and consensus came to his view again. I think we have to acknowledge he's got a pretty good track record on this.
I think, Chair Myron, there's an argument for why the Fed should pay closer attention to moderation in jobs and in the overall economy. And I highlighted some of the weaker spots in the jobs report today. But and yes, inflation is behaving itself now, but most economists think we haven't really fully seen the impact of tariffs yet, whether it's retailers hoarding inventories or waiting on price increases, but that's coming. You see that all over the survey data.
I mean, you see it in some survey data, but the survey data tend to swing around based on sentiment, based on the stock market, and there's not really a good, a good correlation between what happens in survey data in recent history and what happens in hard economic data. That correlation has softened quite a bit. So what I would say is there's no evidence of it thus far. Perhaps it emerges, but there's no evidence thus far. And we did this experiment in 2018, 2019, and we saw that there was zero macroeconomic evidence of material increases in inflation whatsoever. Indeed, the Fed's core measure of inflation went down over that period.
Sure, it wasn't as widespread. I mean, this is 10% tariffs across the board with many trading partners. And just look at Lululemon. Look at all the retailers. They've lowered their profit guidance on this. They're either going to have to eat it in profit margins or pass it on to the consumer. We hear about price increases every day, but you know, Chair Myron, let's stick with jobs. Are you getting concerned about what's underneath the surface here?
Look, you know, I think it was a strong jobs report. I heard your commentary earlier. I think it was quite stronger than that. This is the third jobs day beat in a row, right? The third time the president beat expectations in a row. He's created over 500,000 jobs since he was inaugurated, and that's while cutting the federal workforce by 50,000 jobs, thanks to efforts to trim waste, fraud, and abuse. So I think this was pretty strong, and I think if you look under the surface, there's some really promising details. So all of the job gains since the president's inauguration were native-born Americans, all of them, right? And that contrasts to the last 2 years of a mirage of a strong labor market in which 2/3 of job gains went to foreign-born workers. That was because of the surge in immigration from the Biden administration. And everyone predicted all sorts of labor market doom when the president closed the border to protect Americans, but the opposite has happened.
But you can't argue that things are really, really strong and that the Fed needs to cut rates. a full point.
Well, you can argue that the economy is normalizing to what it was before before COVID and before the Biden administration's reckless stimulus levels. And if the economy is normalizing, then inflation is normalized, and other things could normalize also.
What else do you see in the data right now? Because it's been a little bit mixed. I mean, I agree. I think it's been more resilient than people thought, given some of the high levels of uncertainty and the sort of weaker consumer confidence numbers. But when you say normalizing, what do you expect for growth for the rest of the year?
Well, so it's hard to give a very precise forecast for growth because we have yet to see exactly how the tax bill shapes up between the reconciliation process between the House and the Senate, and we have yet to see exactly how the trade deals shape up as they will, I expect, continue to be made in coming weeks. So it's hard to give a precise forecast when the policy details are still being worked out. But I think that the economy is going to be pretty darn good. The combination of tax incentives for investment that are in the One Big Beautiful Bill to create an investment boom, tax incentives for increased labor supply, deregulation, cutting red tape, energy abundance, trade renegotiation, opening foreign markets to American products. This is an incredibly powerful economic policy combination.
All right, let's go.
This year, we're hearing a lot about government efficiency. To follow the debate, it helps to have data and facts. Don't hit that skip button. This stuff matters. I'm Steve Ballmer, a data nerd who founded USA Facts, and here's a quick take on a hot topic.
Let's begin with this feud between the president and Elon Musk. Their differences over the Trump tax and spending cuts bill extending into those back and forth posts on social media yesterday about other issues too. According to NBC News this morning, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles says there are no plans for a call today between Trump and Musk, and that refutes a report by Politico which says otherwise. ABC, John Carl, Jim, got him on the phone. Trump said he's not interested at this time in talking to Musk.
Well, look, I think that we always speak in terms of cards because of the Zelensky craziness. And I don't know. I think that Musk has a lot of money, but I do think the president has the cards. David, you studied Musk. A lot of what Musk does is offer a superior product to governments worldwide. But a superior product doesn't necessarily win if you don't want it to. You can put your finger on the scale. And I think that there's too many. He's way at risk here, dealing with a president who is not necessarily, who kind of has a very close relationship with the Justice Department.
And not to mention is quite vindictive when it comes to his enemies, certainly, or perceived enemies. Yeah, Jim, I mean, obviously, along with everybody else, just kind of watched in wonderment, not necessarily fully surprised at what we saw yesterday. Although when you go Epstein, it's not clear to me you ever come back from that in terms of repairing a relationship. As that was one of any number of different posts from Mr. Musk in terms of really attacks on the president. And obviously there were rejoinders as well. He's got a lot at stake. Elon has never shown a willingness to back off, ever. Never once. He made that clear in the interview we did 2 years ago, of course, where he famously said, I don't care. Right. And he has proved it every day since, whether it's alienating a certain part of his potential buyers for Teslas by being so political in many ways and so many other ways. But this one is a sort of a somewhat unique challenge he's taken on because, to your point, whether it is Tesla and mileage standards from which it benefits, by the way, because remember, it sells its credits and make it a lot of money to other automakers and need to meet mileage standards. That may go away or may very well go away. Whether it is getting nationwide rules for autonomous driving. I mean, when I was in Austin a couple of weeks ago, the Department of Transportation Secretary was there with me. And they were meeting and talking about those very rules as Musk gave him, see Sean Duffy, a tour not just of the plant, but of the cars as well. So relying on the government for that. EV credits, obviously, which are going away under the big, beautiful bill. Relying to a certain extent on that as well. And then you get to things like NASA. You just go on and on. Right. And to your point, Jim, it would seem that it's not necessarily rational to pursue at this level of vitriol what Mr. Musk is currently pursuing against the president.
I think that's right. I think that if you own Tesla, you own this fight. Now, the analysts they can't find anything wrong with what he does. I didn't read anyone who just said, you know what, I liked it, but I didn't know this guy is just one hell of a crazy guy. I think everyone has accepted his craziness and liked it. I don't think you can. I think that you said the key thing, David. You used the term. There's an executive I know that is linked with Epstein, and I don't have it to the point where it's in front of me from a Justice Department document, but I could have used it, and I said I can't. I mean, I talked to a number of people. I went to lawyers. I went to people who were involved with ethics, and they just said, "Look, Jim, I know you know it, but you can't mention." And I feel, Carl, that's the bridge too far. Everything else, it's a spat. Mentioning Epstein is to say, I'm going to take you down. I think that the problem with Elon is he's like a strap a bomb to your leg guy. I mean, I think that I don't care means in part that, okay, cancel everything. Cancel everything. I don't care. And with the idea that, what does he do? Does he just give millions to Democrats who run against Republicans?
Well, I mean, the line about decommissioning Dragon was a signal, Jim, of how reliant the government is now on what some call oligarchs. You mentioned the street today. Adam Jonas does reiterate 410, but says he's prepared for the stock to give up more. By the way, Adam has an 800 bull and a 200 bear case. Right. And then Goldman does trim some delivery numbers.
Right. Well, look, I think that Adam, that's a this. This is just different.
This is different.
This is different.
And I mean, to the point Carl made, canceling Dragon, which is the main way that NASA gets access to space. Now, he did, I think, walk that back a bit later. You know, Jim, if you are, obviously Tesla is the main public way, but there are plenty of investors in SpaceX, XAI as well, talked about many times, which also includes, by the way, X, the former Twitter. If you're an investor with Musk, you knew this. Again, I go back to 2 years ago and his behavior since then, in terms of at least understanding the risk you were taking that comes with all that reward, because it's Elon Musk and look what he's accomplished. But do you have to take another look at it and just say,
I'm saying yes.
I don't know if I can own Tesla.
I'm saying yes.
Is he willing to really blow it all up?
Well, I just think that as between Tesla and 499 other stocks, I would tell you that I can't sleep at night with this now. I mean, I can wake up in the morning and the guy can say, I've been thinking about it and I'm pulling out. And what does that mean to all these private venture people who own it? I mean, it's a one-person company.
Well, Tesla is not, I mean, I don't think of it that way.
Well, no, I think that people are buying him.
Yeah. Well, it's the way through the public markets to get access to Musk. And obviously the promise of autonomous vehicles and the promise of robotics, which are the two areas that he is most focused on. Not on the delivery numbers that we will talk about and that can still influence the stock price on a daily basis.
Well, I think
again, you need the government as your partner in some way in so many of these efforts that, you know, he said again in the back and forth yesterday, well, Trump's around for 3.5 more years. I'm around for 40 plus. But 3.5 more years could take a lot of damage, Carl.
Look, I'm thinking about what Biden did when he decided, look, we're going to put a pause on liquefied, on LNG. Okay, let's put a pause on a pipeline. And that ended the industry. It just ended it because there were so many projects that were canceled. Many of them have not come back. I just think that President Trump, vindictive, could say, you know what, I've decided that I don't like self-driving autos that rely on vision. I think that ones that rely on maps are better. In other words,
well, LiDAR and radar, right? I mean, he could basically say, we favor the Department of Transportation favors Waymo.
If your neck looks like this, you need to watch this video. When you sit at your desk or use your phone, your head protrudes forward.
All right.
Let's begin with this feud between.
Crazy. It's crazy. All right, we're going to go to Bloomberg here.
Appreciate that reporting. For our listeners in the U.S., a reminder, you can listen to us via satellite radio and Sirius.
They're on a commercial break, so let's do a commercial then. please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This collagen is a multi-purpose supplement. It's going to help with your hair, your nails, your skin, but it also helps with your musculature, your joints, and your bones. Very important. Take it every day. It's a powder. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even milk. I mix it with soft foods like hummus. But take it every day. This is a month's supply. Very important for your overall health. Do resistance training. It's going to help with joint health, musculature, and bone health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Let's talk about a dual purpose stack that's going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. All right. So taking turmeric will help soak up free radicals because it's an antioxidant, but it also brings down inflammation. That's important for your immune system and your cardiovascular system because less inflammation at the vascular level is going to reduce plaque formation. Ashwagandha root brings down cortisol levels, helps you to control your blood glucose levels, and that helps bring down that inflammatory response that's at the vascular level, so you're reducing plaque formation. And by bringing down cortisol, you are boosting up your immune system. Now, taking turmeric and ashwagandha together is synergistic to help with your immune system and cardiovascular system, but also stacking it with omega-3s, very important because omega-3 brings down systemic inflammation, helps to reduce the stickiness of the red blood cells. So that's preventing or mitigating overclotting, really important. And omega-3 helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So if you're improving your lipid profile, you're reducing oxidized LDL. And by reducing oxidized LDL means you're reducing plaque formation. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the omega-3, get the ashwagandha root, and get the turmeric, stack them together. Very powerful stack to boost up your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you drink filtered water and exercise, all right? Stay away from processed foods. And those exercises you should do all 4 modalities: cardio, resistance training, balancing exercises, and stretching exercises. All 4 modalities are very important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
So where does this morning's jobs report leave the Federal Reserve and Chair Jay Powell? Stephen Blitz is chief U.S. economist at Lombard Street Research, and he was a guest right here on Bloomberg Intelligence.
Powell, in effect, has a hall pass here, right? So I think that, he knows he's out of a job in May. We're into legacy building on his part. And Trump said a few months ago, though, it changes every day with him, but he said no pain, no gain on the tariff side. So it's a tough spot for them.
Stephen Blitz of Lombard Street Research, interviewed right here on Bloomberg Intelligence. After earnings, we've got Lululemon Athletica shares. They are now plunging by 19.7% after last night's report. Shares of Broadcom, AVGO, the old Avago on the ticker there. We have got that stock down now by 2.8%. So again, recapping here, a rally underway. Jobs Friday. Stocks pushing higher. Our coverage will continue on Bloomberg Intelligence with the S&P at 6,005, up by 1.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today. I'm Paul Sweeney along with Alex Steele, and we're joined by Bloomberg's Red Brown Red. What are you looking at today?
Yeah, just like Charlie just mentioned there, Lululemon is dropping quite aggressively right now, down around 19%. That's their worst move since 2020. And that really comes off of quite a disappointing earnings report, I guess we can call it. The mood heading into this report was actually pretty positive. I think people were looking for a reiteration of their outlook, and that's, given the kind of circumstances, quite a positive thing. But instead, they cut their full year and gave kind of disappointing quarterly outlook as well.
Let's go to Petco. So usually it's like recession proof, right? Pets and investing in your face. That's
Right.
my thing. What did we learn from Petco's numbers?
Yeah, Petco ticker is kind of a fun one. Woof.
I spoiled it for you, but I just got excited.
Yeah, shares also getting hit quite hard as well. The reason being is the company's kind of in the middle of a turnaround, and you would expect, like you're saying, that they would be kind of recession proof, but that doesn't seem to be playing out in the results right now, even though the company is working really hard to, fix their merchandising, get their stores looking a little bit better, cut back on the discretionary things to to your point, Alex, of like getting this into a more recession-proof type company. They are coming off of this pandemic era boom, but right now the markets at least aren't taking this in stride, but analysts are kind of impressed with the progress so far, so they're on track to expand margins for the first time in years. Again, shifting focus away from the more discretionary toys and things like that towards services, grooming, veterinary clinics as well. The company's making a lot of progress there. Company just down off earnings today, but maybe some positives to take away from the actual strategic moves.
All right, so I'm getting my first dog in July. So we just did a little tour of the local Petco. They got everything, including
it's like Walmart for pets only.
Yes, and they got the grooming thing. And
let's talk about how some of the supplements that I have can actually help with dogs and cats. All right. I normally don't talk about it that much, but for the ones that have reached out to me, some of the things that I do have will help with your pet. The Max 14, the Max 35, or the Cleanse, giving them a half a teaspoon a day and mix it with their food will help with their oral cavity, but also their gut, and help with their immune system. You can give them C60 for the dropper, give them about a half a dropper, a full dropper. All right. So you got a full dropper, about half a dropper, and mix it in their food. If you have a big dog or a really big cat, you can put a full dropper in. And also the another thing that you might want to get for your pet is NMN. And NMN is, I don't have that on my store, but I give that to my pet, and that will help with slowing down the aging process. All right. But a similar way to do that is also the NAD plus. So, but C60 and the Max 35, Max 14, or Cleanse for your pet are pretty good stuff for your pet. So you can you can use it for yourself and for your pet, for some of these supplements that I do have. I don't normally bring that up, but for the ones that are pet owners, slow down. You can slow down the aging process of your pet, because your pet's lifespan is shorter than a human. You'll actually see the anti-aging effects quicker. So, and another thing that's really important for your pets is make sure that you give them a multivitamin. Like a multivitamin is really important. And cook their food. Do not buy their food. Cook their food. Cook their food. Like do like a week food prep for them, and then you rewarm it. All right, and it's so you have vegetables in there, and you have meats. Either chicken or beef, and sometimes even fish. But you just food prep it for the week. You reheat it. Do not reheat it in the microwave. Reheat it on the stove top and let it cool down. Once it's cool, then you put in the supplements, the multivitamins for your pet, the Max 35, Max 14 or Cleanse, and the C60, and do that on a regular basis, and you'll notice that they'll have more energy. Another thing that is good for your pet is giving them the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. Give them about one small little scoop, not a big scoop, but a small scoop. Small scoop's about half a teaspoon or so. Mix it with the food, and that's going to help detoxify their body. They're going to have less inflammation. Their joint health will be better, and it's going to soak up free radicals. So by giving them the C60 and the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley, you're soaking up those free radicals two ways. You're soaking up the free radicals through the C60 for your pet, but you're also soaking up the free radicals with superoxide dismutase. So by soaking up those free radicals, you're going to start seeing that slowing down the, there was a breaking news that popped up on the screen and I missed it. So by slowing down the aging process, by soaking up those free radicals, you're going to see that your pet is going to have more energy, and the hair, the coat of the pet will be better. Their eyesight will be better. You'll notice that sometimes when you have a pet, their eye age you start to see their eye age probably around the 8th year, maybe 10th year of the pet. So eye health is really important for pets. But yeah, some of these supplements that you can take you can give for your pet. You can, like I said, the Max 35, Max 14 or Cleanse. Give them about a half a teaspoon, depending on the size of your pet. The C60, half a dropper or a full dropper a day. The gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. And then NMN, which is something I don't have on my store. And I think that's a multivitamin. A multivitamin for your pet that's just for pets. So you would get that at a pet store. But by doing that and cooking their food and food prepping it and making sure it's reheated on the stovetop and cooled down before you give it to the pet and before you mix all the ingredients for the supplements, you'll actually see that your pet is slowing down its age. And that's exactly what I did, and my first pet, I didn't do that. I didn't know. And the second pet, the second dog I have, I started right away the anti-aging protocol, and it's working. So it's amazing. It's truly amazing. So we can take the anti-aging research and knowledge for humans and apply it, tweak it for pets.
That's happening as everyone's taking their big ERP systems into the cloud. I mean, there's work that has to get done so that our businesses remain competitive on the world stage.
Kate, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Kate Duchesne, CEO at RGP, joining us via Zoom from Irvine, California. Cars, tariffs, not a good thing if you're a consumer. The costs are going up. The question is, who's paying for it? Are the automakers taking it in their margin, the dealers, or are we as consumers? Keith Naughton joins us here, Bloomberg News auto reporter. Keith, talk to us about what you're hearing from some of the dealers out there, the auto dealers, about how they're dealing with their increased costs of the autos. Are they passing them along?
Yeah, they are, but in a sort of under the radar way. We call them stealth price increases. What's happening is the car makers are scaling back on the incentives, the rebates, and the cut rate financing deals. They're increasing fees like delivery fees, sometimes even fees for things like floor mats. They're doing it in a way that they don't have to change the sticker price, but the actual cost of a car to a consumer is going up by hundreds a month.
And what's the response, you think, from consumers? Do we know yet if they can take it?
If they're going to raise prices, what's going to happen is the ones that absolutely have to buy are going to buy. If it gets too expensive, people are going to hold off, and then inventory is going to build up, and then there are going to be major discounts for the vehicles. That's what's going to happen. And if you wait it out and you put pressure on the automakers, they're going to give you discounts.
A lot of interest, but that has slowed because those pre-tariff cars are starting to go away.
It's not that
so
simple.
Do we have any feedback from the dealers about maybe how the consumers, how are they reacting? Are the consumers I don't know, not willing, but are they paying, in fact, paying more? Or are sales, is it the volume's going down?
Because when you think about it too, like if you're already going to pay like $40,000 for a new car, if you do it by 41, like, I don't know, you're already paying so much. You're going to go on a loan system anyway, Keith.
Well, part of the problem is the average price of a new car is almost $50,000. It's at record highs. So if you are already paying $750 a month for a car loan, 18% of people are paying over $1,000 a month on their car loan. Yeah, if you raise the price a little bit, they're out. They go to the used market. That's just the way it's going to be. Because the cost creep has been slow, and
most people don't absolutely have to buy a new car. The issue is the ones that are rolling over their lease. That's where they get you. Because once your lease is starting to come due, then you're on the hook, and then you might go to the used market.
Walk away if monthly payments rose by just 5%. So it sounds like, I mean, again, people, they're paying more for everything, and a big jump in your car payment is probably not going to be something you want to deal with.
Exactly. We're in a very price-sensitive market right now. There's inflation everywhere. The car is the second largest purchase a person will make after their home. So they're very sensitive to that, and they don't want to feel like they're getting ripped off. So there is this expectation that once the
Think about this idea, and it's a podcaster that I got this idea from. Inequality can be measured through inflation. All right. This is a pretty revolutionary idea, but it's a simple concept. Inequality can be measured quantitatively by inflation. As inflation happens, more money that's being printed goes to assets, not to goods and services. Less money goes to goods and services. So ones that have equity, have assets, either homes or stock or bonds or whatever, private equity, those assets usually go up in an inflationary time period, at least in the United States or in developed nations. So when he's saying that, well, that people are price sensitive, right? And there's inflation that's taking place. When these assets go up, the holders of these assets are going to get richer. Now, the economic theory is taught in school that if you own dollars, right, during inflation, then your value that you've saved is less. But they don't really teach you that the value of the dollars that you've invested in equities or in homes usually go up faster than the actual inflation rate. So rich get richer, the poor get poorer. So you can actually see and measure the inequality through actually the inflation rate, comparing it to asset price appreciation and seeing the difference. Because in a perfect world, assets should appreciate at the inflation rate. But because of behavioral dynamics, it doesn't. It moves faster. So let's say you have an inflation of 5%. And let's say the Federal Reserve wants it at 2%. So you have 3% above target. That 3% is going to go into the stock market or other assets that rich people have. And those assets will appreciate 10% or 15% because it's a multiple of the earnings. So a stock is trading, it has an EPS, earnings per share, and it trades like 15 times earnings per share or 30 times or whatever it is. It changes over time. But the thing is it's never one. All right. So, or in very rare cases is it one. You're talking about companies going bankrupt. But the thing is that it's a multiple. So assets appreciate faster than inflation, especially in long data sets. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Now, we are being programmed by the media, bring down the federal funds rate so you can buy a home, so you can get a mortgage. All right. So the Federal Reserve, when they do that, they're actually printing more money. How does that mechanism work? They don't just raise the rate. They buy bonds, typically on the front end of the curve, but they're buying bonds. They're buying T-bills or whatever. They're buying something from the banks or from the market. And they're putting money into the 12 bank institutions that are tied to the Federal Reserve. So you have more money in the system. So the bank loans you for a mortgage. You say, well, wait a minute, the rates are lower, so I can afford a home. But usually when the rates go lower, people want to buy. And so there's a bid up of the actual homes. And so prices start to go up. So the seller actually is making more. And it's at a higher, usually at a higher rate. That asset appreciation is higher than the actual inflation that was created by the Federal Reserve, tricking the middle class that you have purchasing power. And, you know, when I heard this, intuitively, it makes a lot of sense. But that's not how they teach it in economic courses or in finance courses, or it's, you know, the canonical dogma is that inflation erodes your capital. If you're saving dollars, it erodes the value of the dollar. Well, that's true. But most rich people don't put it in a money market. Most people that are wealthy or uber wealthy, they have it in equity in companies. And the value of those companies go up during an inflationary time period. Yes, it fluctuates up and down based on cyclical factors. But when you look at larger time series, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And the poor think that they're doing better when they actually have a lower interest rate. What you really need is to break the transmission of the rich having the ability to have these multiple you have to slow down their ascent. So if the economy is, let's say, inflating at 3%, these rich people shouldn't be inflating their wealth by 150%. Maybe they should inflate their wealth by 10% or 5%, right? Or 9%, but not 150%. So maybe what we really need to do is restructure the actual compensational package of the managerial class that's tied to the options within their pay package. And there should be some sort of cap for corporate governance where the CEO and the C-suite can only have a certain multiple higher than the average employee in the company. So there needs to be compensational reform that takes place because there is a rise of this managerial class that's tied to the options that are available within their pay package, where they get a lot of money from the ascent of the stock. And that is, yes, predicated to the how well they manage the company, but also predicated on how much the Federal Reserve is pumping money into the system. Meanwhile, the managerial class gets richer and the working class gets more.
Pretty much unchanged today. There has been no movement in yields across the curve. Year to date, the market is down about 1%. It's been underperforming treasuries. A lot of that has come from just an onslaught of supply in munis. Supply is up about 20% over last year. This week in particular was incredibly large, around $20 billion worth of sales. So that hurt prices a little bit.
And broadly, though, individually, we've seen a lot of different cracks and issues, particularly around education. We talk a lot about, say, Harvard and Yale, but something that's close to my heart is a New York City private school going bankrupt. That's Manhattan Country School. It's a private school in New York City, and apparently it's facing such difficulty that it filed for bankruptcy with only $82,300 in its bank account. How do we get to this place in this kind of educational environment?
I mean, it's a lot of the same demographics that are pressuring small colleges and universities in the US. There's just less kids. The birth rate fell after during the Great Recession in 2007, and it has never recovered. So when your business model relies on...
This is another reason why they need to bring illegal immigration, because it's not just the private school, it's the public school that's having problems, because their funding is based on pupils in the seat at the beginning of the year.
They tried to expand, which did work for a little bit, and then the pandemic came and people rethought the value of certain educational philosophies. People moved to the suburbs. They tried different types of schooling programs. And Manhattan Country School filed for bankruptcy a couple of weeks ago. Today is their last day of school, which was accelerated by about a week because they couldn't make payroll. They're now fundraising to try and pay teachers through the end of the year. It's a really sad situation, and a lot of parents are trying to figure out what to do next.
So awful.
Yeah, that is
those poor kids.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to us about Chicago. Chicago's always in the news, the finances of the city of Chicago. I know they were coming to market with an issuance. Talk to us about what's happening in Chicago.
You know, the thing is that when you have a society that is antithetical to God, country, and family, don't be surprised that the society starts to devolve. Don't be surprised that the society isn't robust. Don't be surprised that the economic prowess starts to weaken. So places like New York, yeah, it has a lot of financial, horsepower, but that's not because of the current. That's because it's riding on the coattails of prior decades. Not having kids in a society is eventually a warning sign of where the country long-term is going.
This week. Silly question, but what kind of yield, where's the tipping point where the yield is too much for the issuer to pay and the borrower won't take on the risk? Like, do we know where that sits, particularly when it comes to this weird rate environment that we're in?
No.
I think that's hard to say. In munis, there's often a philosophy that if the yield's high enough, you'll find a buyer always at some point, depending on the credit. And you do have to remember, Chicago is a major city. It's a giant economic engine. So there is a safety net there that a lot of investors do see. But if they come to market and there's anything that can be bought at a price. So that's what the philosophy is.
What's the new issue market look like going forward? Anything, is it still healthy? Are there some big names that the market's really going to be focused on?
Yes, it is definitely still healthy. Issuance is booming in the muni bond market. There's a ton that's coming to market. Next week, LA County is coming with about $700 million. There's a deal from the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Authority. The state of Maryland is coming to market. That state was recently downgraded by Moody's because of some of the impact from the DOGE cuts that have reverberated outside of DC. So that will be a really interesting deal to watch. But there's just a ton of supply in munis right now. Governments are dealing with a sunsetting of pandemic stimulus aid. They still have a lot of infrastructure projects that need to be financed. And so they're coming to the market in droves this year.
All right, Danielle, we really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Danielle Moran is a Bloomberg Municipal Finance.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take this stack to help with your neural protection. NAD Plus is a supplement that will boost up your NAD Plus levels. It'll help to boost up that energy, help to repair DNA, mitochondrial DNA and cellular DNA, you start to accumulate DNA damage when you get older. And it's harder for the internal processes of the cell to repair that. So NAD plus will help with that repair. And NAD plus helps to protect neurons. Very important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. Another great supplement to take, very important to take if you're 40 years of age or older, is ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals, and that's going to help with the health of your mitochondria and boost up energy levels. It's also an antioxidant. It's going to soak up, it'll soak up those, that free radical that's building up, not just at the cell, but also in the neuron. And at the vascular level, it's going to soak up free radicals. So that's going to prevent the LDL from being oxidized. So that's really important. So ubiquinol is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up those free radicals, right? And with healthier mitochondria, it's going to boost up that energy. Super important. This ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10. So ubiquinol and CoQ10 helps the health of your mitochondria, all right? It helps with that energy process. So you're gonna have more ATP. But when you take ubiquinol instead of the regular CoQ10 that you take, most people that are taking CoQ10, they're not getting the most bioavailable formula. This is the most bioavailable formula. So please go to my store, get the ubiquinol. This is a great antioxidant. It helps the health of the mitochondria, and it's also gonna protect the neuron. So when you stack it with the NAD+, all right, you're soaking up free radicals, you're boosting up energy levels, you're helping the health of your mitochondria, you're helping heal your DNA damage, and you're protecting your neuron. It's a very powerful stack. Also stack it with resveratrol and C60. Those are powerful stacks. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ubiquinol and the NAD+.
Labor force in May was 917,000, which, except for a couple of COVID months, is the highest level ever in that data series. So it may be a combination of the border being closed and then people who might be undocumented hiding out and not admitting that they are in the labor force and working and looking for jobs because they don't want to get arrested and deported. So it looks like we may have seen something there, although construction hiring was okay. It was very low, but okay. And I looked and we did not see a drop in the number of people in the Hispanic labor force.
Okay.
So it's not a clear-cut case, but it does look like maybe we're starting to see something.
When we got the ISM services earlier this week, and also manufacturing, that felt like a stagflationary kind of scenario. That's we kept getting stuff in our inbox that said that. But then you take a look at the jobs number and then we don't see that. Do we expect the services data to really start to roll over here?
Well, it depends on what you consider stagflation. I mean, we think of it in 1970s terms, but if you're talking about basically just stagnant growth, low growth, and some inflation, we could still be on track to that because the labor market is slowing down quite a bit, and growth is slowing. We haven't got a really accurate picture yet because of the distortions from trade. Big contraction in the first quarter and a larger than real increase in the second quarter so far. But we can be still heading that direction because we do have a lot of anecdotal data, and including from the ISMs you were talking about, that prices are rising. And so that should be reflected in the price data in this month or the next.
And wage growth still pretty solid. Is it too solid?
No, it's not too solid. We're, well, 3.9% is a little bit above what the Fed is looking for as a sustainable level. They're looking at 3.5 or so, but they don't think that we're seeing any wage pressures because there's still more job openings than there are candidates for jobs. So if that continues, and of course, if the unemployment rate rises, then it just lowers the inflation worry.
All right, Mike, thanks. Really appreciate it. Michael McKee, Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent. Appreciate all that analysis. All right, coming up, we're going to talk to Scott Levine. He's Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Energy and Industrials Services Analyst. We'll talk about President Trump's nuclear plan to really revive and nuclear as a viable form of energy, and also a new growth wave, not just expanding existing plans, but adding new plans and helping to boost up permitting as well for small modular nuclear reactor. Ooh, that was hard. Modular nuclear. Okay, we'll get there.
Yes.
This is Bloomberg. Happy Friday.
All right, let's talk about another stack here that's really important. Vitamin C and magnesium. This is a dual purpose product. This is going to help with your skin, your immune system, and your brain health. Magnesium helps with brain function. Vitamin C is going to help boost up that immune system and help with your skin. Magnesium also improves the efficacy of vitamin D3. If you're 40 years of age or older, you should be taking the vitamin B complex. The first 4 B vitamins helps the mitochondria to build energy. Vitamin B complex also helps with that cellular metabolism, and the B12 vitamin helps to protect neurons. And like I said, protecting your neurons is really important. So the vitamin B complex could stack really well with the ubiquinol and the NAD+. And if you're 40 years of age or older, you need to do resistance training and a lot of other things, but make sure you drink filtered water and stay away from processed foods and get proper sleep. But definitely do the 4 modalities of exercise. Resistance training, cardio, stretching, and balancing exercises are all very important. But when you turn about age 40, for males or females, you're going to have a harder time building muscle. And that's because your genes start to methylate as you age. Now, if you can slow down the methylation process, your tissues will perform younger than a peer group that didn't slow down their methylation process. Myotrol is going to help allow for the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. You need to do resistance training and proper diet and exercise, and take the Myotrol. It has polyphenols, lignans, and flavonoids to help with that gene expression. This stacks really well with gladiator barley to help build muscle. So please go to my store, get the Myotrol, take it every day, build the muscle, because it helps with the gene expression. And if you stack it with the gladiator barley, you'll get further benefits. You'll have the high density protein to build that muscle. You'll be able, with that gladiator barley, to bring down the inflammation, detoxify your body, and soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. So Myotrol is really important. So a great stack. Help with your muscles with the Myotrol. Help with your neurons and your cellular metabolism with the vitamin B complex. And help with your immune system and your brain function and your skin with the vitamin C and magnesium. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It's 11:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. We have got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing. Stocks heading toward the highest since February. We are, however, off session highs. Jobs Friday in the S&P up 53, up by 0.9%. The Dow up 335. That is a gain of 0.8%. NASDAQ, the composite index, up 220, up 1.1%. The Russell 2000 index of small cap shares up 1.3%. And the Bloomberg Mag 7 index up now by 2%. The 10-year at 4.47%, with the 2-year currently yielding 4.01%. Gold is down 0.5%. 33.34 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 2%, now 64.62 for a barrel of WTI. So stocks higher right now. What about further gains, though, for the U.S. equity market? Chuck Lieberman is Chief Investment Officer at Advisors Capital Management. He was a guest right here on Bloomberg Intelligence.
Well, the economy continues to grow. The pace of growth is a bit slower, but that was to be expected. And profits are rising. So sure, why should stocks not continue to move up?
Chuck Lieberman of Advisors Capital Management. We're also keeping an eye on shares of Robinhood Markets, right now up 1.3%. Investors are speculating that the online brokerage could become the latest firm to earn a coveted spot in the S&P 500 index. Wall Street firms, including Bank of America and Barclays, have called the company a top candidate to join the benchmark. China, as we have been reporting, granted temporary export licenses to rare earth suppliers of the top 3 U.S. automakers. This according to a Reuters story citing 2 unidentified people familiar with the matter. Recapping, S&P up now by 0.9% for on-demand news 24 hours a day. Subscribe to Bloomberg News now, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Alex Steele and Paul Sweeney live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, streaming live on YouTube as well. Also on your smart TV, think Roku, think Samsung TV, all that kind of stuff. You can search there, Bloomberg Originals, and you'll find our video feed there as well. So we're pretty much everywhere. I'll tell you, one industry that appears to be a big winner in the Trump administration is nuclear energy. The White House has a goal to quadruple U.S. nuclear generated capacity by 2050. Helping us walk through the math there, Scott Levine, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Energy and Industrials Analyst. Man, that seems, nuclear, we haven't talked about that in like forever. And I remember 3 Mile Island. We were sent home from boarding school because we were in New Jersey. Talk to us about nuclear energy and what this administration would like to do.
Yeah, nuclear has always kind of been a bit of a strange one for environmentalists and for the industry overall. You know, it's an emissions-free power source, right, which would seem to align well with the goals of environmentalists. However, safety concerns, end up being an issue. You mentioned 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, and otherwise. And so, with the combination of demand from AI for power of all types, coupled with the fact that it is an emissions-free power source, has really brought it back into the forefront in supporting the AI demand story. So you have the demand picture has clearly strengthened as a result of that. The 2 things that really blew a hole in the story the last time it was in vogue in the Obama administration was really the shale revolution, which made natural gas so cheap as an alternative. And then in 2011, Fukushima created all kinds of concerns there. So the 2 really blew a hole in the story then. And now, 15 years has gone by since then. And the memory has faded. And now it's back in the forefront of folks' minds.
So expanding or keeping alive or recommissioning a nuclear plant is one thing, and that's what we're doing at 3 Mile Island. We're getting it back up and running again. Then Constellation also made that deal with Meta on Monday or Tuesday that it's just continuing to expand. It's going to keep going with its nuclear reactor, right? But building a new one is like a whole different thing. How expensive is that?
Yeah, so we've only built 1 plant in the last 30 years in this country. It was in Georgia. It was initially expected to cost under $15 billion and take 7.5 years. And it ended up costing over $30 billion to complete. And taking about twice as long as expected. And that was the one that got through, right?
Well, but President Trump and what he outlined in those executive orders is aimed to reduce the time and the money. But can it do it that much?
I mean, in theory, it's possible, yes, but there's so much we don't know, right? I mean, our expectation would be that, we may not even see full-sized reactors built at this point, right? Small modular reactors.
That's where I want to go.
Are being developed.
He said it well. I didn't say it well.
There are, and so these are going to be much more, they're, modular built. They're smaller in terms of the unitization. And so they could be built conceivably behind the grid if the regulators can get comfortable with the safety aspects. So it's conceivable, but none of those have been built yet, right? So a lot of it's still on the come, and a lot of it will depend on the progress of technology, progress of the regulators, et cetera.
Is the technology there? Because we've had people come through here and kind of imply that it is there.
It is on paper. There's
have we built one of them?
We have not built any of them in the U.S. There have been a couple built overseas. Only one design has been approved, and that is NuScale's small modular reactor. And that's basically mimics a light water reactor. It's a smaller version of the plants that are in service now. 2/3 of the ones in service in the U.S. are Westinghouse, 1/3, give or take, are GE, and those are all light water reactors. And then there's a whole other list of companies that are building these more innovative technology, gas-cooled reactors, salt-cooled reactors. None of those are in service, right? And, half of those are in the process of commercialization in some way, shape, or form, but none have been built here, no.
Why is nuclear so interesting to hyperscalers?
Because it's emissions free and because it runs 24/7, right? And that's the big knock on wind and solar, right? And so those two things in and of themselves, they need to be 24/7. They need to be base load in order to support data center needs, number one. And number two, emissions free, supports the environmental mandates of the Metas, the Googles, the Microsofts of the world. And those are two huge positives that can't be ignored. So if indeed we need power for a longer period of time than it's taken to train these models, and all indications suggest that will be the case for inferencing purposes, nuclear's positives are really too great to ignore.
But it's expensive.
Yes.
Who's going to pay for this? Are we federal government's going to come up with some subsidies? Is the president proposing that?
Yeah, they are proposing that. And that's really kind of the big unknown right now. How much money are they willing to put behind this? When they built the Southern Company plant, Vogel in Georgia, the Obama administration put over $8 billion in loan guarantees towards that, and it ended up costing $31 to $34 billion. Wow. Yeah, and so we're in an age now, right, where the budget's a concern, and some renewable projects are being canceled, others are being allowed to move forward, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's carbon capture, et cetera. So, Trump saying he loves nuclear is a big positive there, but how much money they're willing to put behind specific projects is really the key question.
And that's such an interesting point, because therein lies the problem with hyperscalers. They're not used to taking on that particular kind of risk.
Yeah.
Also, they need power yesterday. So saying that we can get this to you, let's just be generous and say 7 years, let's say 4. They need it yesterday. 4 is not going to be good enough. So are they going to actually help offset the cost for something that won't be available to them in 4 years in an industry like tech that changes really fast?
I mean, every hyperscaler has made positive comments regarding nuclear. Then it comes down to how substantive is that exactly? And so, the reality here is they need interim solutions now to support the growth. They also need longer term solutions. Nuclear certainly could be a longer term solution. But, we'll see what the details are. We'll see whether the government's willing to subsidize a portion of those investments. The one thing I can say is utilities are probably going to be reticent to put a lot of money behind this on their own without that backing, given the history of the last 3 decades.
Totally. All right, Scott, really good. It's great stuff. Love that you're covering this. Scott Levine is Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Energy and Industrial Services Analyst. All right, coming up, we're going to talk to John Boyd, founder and president at National Black Farmers Association, on how the industry is faring amid the uncertainty.
hopefully you can hear me. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. The Boomer Boost is a supplement that has 68 nutrients, has a very comprehensive powder compound. Read the label on my website so you can dive into it. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com, but Boomer Boost basically targets a few systems. It targets your cardiovascular system, helps to improve that, helps to improve your brain function. It helps with musculature and revs up your metabolism and your energy levels. You'll have a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day. You won't have brain fog, all right? You'll get rid of that. You'll sleep better. You'll be able to concentrate better. And you'll just have more vitality. Within 72 hours of taking this, you'll start to see the effects. You're going to start to lose weight safely and get to a target weight. And you use this either for breakfast or for lunch. You replace your lunch or your breakfast. Not both, but just one. And take it once a day. There's a big scooper, take one scooper a day. Mix it with soft foods like hummus, yogurt, or applesauce, or just filtered water. Some people put it in milk. Other people make a smoothie. But the idea here is to take it every day, and this is your breakfast or for your lunch. And by doing that, you're going to slowly control your blood glucose levels. You add in some of the other holistic aspects to this, like proper sleep, proper diet. Stay away from processed foods, drink filtered water, do the 4 modalities of exercise: resistance training, cardio, stretching, balancing. Learn new things, have mindfulness or some spirituality. And this holistic approach, by taking the right supplementation, is going to let your body to heal, and you're going to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost.
Bloomberg Radio.
Happy Friday, everybody. Alex Steele here alongside Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg Intelligence Radio. We are broadcasting to you live from our interactive broker studio right here in Midtown Manhattan. Also check us out on YouTube, as well as all your smart TVs and Roku and all the likes of that. June is Pride Month. So over the next few weeks, we're going to highlight segments on topics related to equality. And today we're speaking with John Boyd, founder and president of the National Black Farmers. John, it's not you, it's me. I've been not able to say words for like 2 hours. John, what does your organization, National Black Farmers Association, do?
Well, we offer, first of all, thank you for having me. We offer technical assistance and outreach to 151,000 members in the United States. We've been around since the early 80s. And we were organized to help eradicate discrimination at government agencies and state, federal levels. And we've been doing this kind of work for a very, very long time. And I spearheaded the Black Farmers lawsuits, one in settlement in 1999 and the other settlement on December 8th, 2010 by former President Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. That paid out $1.25 billion to 20,000 Black farmers who face and experience discrimination at the hands of the United States Department of Agriculture. So we've been around a very, very long time.
So, John, how is that journey going? I mean, clearly it wasn't great when you started the association. What kind of grade would you give it now?
Well, I think we really went back decades here in progress with the administration. They came in and done away with anything that began with the word equity and diversity and justice, and eliminated those positions. Got the United States Department of Agriculture, and we still haven't received our $5 billion payout for discrimination, and also land and federal inventory that I've been after for many, many years. And it was disheartening to learn that the administration was bringing white farmers in from South Africa, offering them a fast path to citizenship. And also we learned that they're going to offer these farmers land out of federal inventory that came from black farmers and land from the Department of Interior that came grazing land that was primarily leased to Native Americans. I was disheartened that the president said, although he was doing away with DEI or anything that was race related, and then brought in white farmers to the United States solely based on race. So he's saying he wants to have everything equal and do away with the race stuff, but then he brings in white farmers from South Africa and wants to offer them a fast path to citizenship, and I'm 110% opposed to it.
Well, you know, John, it's also hard because being a farmer is hard in general, like hard enough. Oh, you're dealing with crops, you're dealing with weather, you're dealing with things completely out of your control, and then you layer this on top of it.
Hardest occupation known to man, people, is farming. And I could work 24 hours in a day and never catch up. And, you know, we have to deal with the act of Mother Nature, like you said, floods and tornadoes and hurricanes and droughts. And this, believe it or not, is the first year in a very, very long time that I'm farming without a farm operating loan here in my own country, where the bank said and the government said, you know, we're not going to extend credit to you because your input costs and the low prices due to the president's tariffs created some of the lowest prices in a very, very long time. If you factor in the input costs and the low commodity costs, wheat $5 a bushel, corn and $4 and something a bushel, and soybeans hovering around $10 a bushel, people. These are very, very low prices, and every time the president says the word tariffs, he scares the bejeebers out of the markets and the prices plummet. And, you know, many Americans don't know that farmers are price takers. We're not price givers. So my price is based on the market that the president can plays with when, you know, when he gets ready. It affects the very first people that voted for him overwhelmingly is farmers in this country. Are the very first population that's taken a black eye from the president because of these low prices that we just don't have any control over.
Well, do you think that grains, though, will be included in trade deals, which then in essence could help?
Well, I hope so. And, you know, I like to equate it back to the president's first presidency. And I believe it was in 2018 where I was actually selling soybeans, almost $16.80 a bushel. And when the president imposed tariffs the first time on his presidency, the price plummeted because China basically stopped buying them all the way down to $6 a bushel from $16.80. So we don't have anything to compare it to in a positive aspect. It didn't work the first time. And right now, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm in a very precarious situation. You know, no farm operating loan, a shaky market. And for the future of agriculture right now, things are looking grim, people. We just don't have the new markets that the president said they were working to put in place. And, you know, the ag department, instead of making things better, they're saying that they want to close offices. So the administration says that they're going to help farmers by payments, but they're closing farm offices.
John, we got to leave it there, up against a break there. John Boyd, founder and president of National Black Farmers Association, kind of breaking down all the issues that are with farmers, but also black farmers in particular. That wraps up.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Resveratrol will soak up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. It's going to help with your mitochondrial health. It's going to boost up energy levels, super important. Helps with youthful gene expression and gets rid of cells that are in senescence. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. It's part of an anti-aging protocol that I take. It stacks really well with C60, NAD+, ubiquinol, clarity factor. Let's talk about Clarity Factor. Clarity Factor will help to get rid of brain fog. You should be taking this every day, no matter what your age. If you're a young adult or an adult or even geriatric, taking Clarity Factor is super important so you can concentrate on tasks at work, at school, even if you're retired. And what this is going to do is it's going to get rid of that brain fog. You'll be able to concentrate. It's going to help to support memory. And by building those neuroplastic networks, you're going to think faster. You're going to have better memory. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Clarity Factor, stack it with the resveratrol to get added benefits, and drink it with filtered water. Super important. Make sure you detoxify your body regularly too. I have zeolite on my store that helps you to do that. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And also remember, Gladiator barley and heirloom barley help to detoxify your body. I also have a great stack that will help to build denser bone and help with your cardiovascular health at the same time. D3, okay? D3 is a DNA gene expression cofactor, all right? So D3 is really important for gene expression. It's a cofactor for it. It also helps to absorb calcium. And D3 has the benefit of getting rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. Now, D3 works better when you take magnesium. It has a higher efficacy. Now, bringing in calcium and taking D3 and doing resistance training is going to help you build denser bone. Now, if you stack it with the K2 MK7 molecule, vitamin K2 MK7 stacked with D3 is going to allow you to absorb that calcium better and help you to build that bone density. But in addition to building bone density, it'll help to pull some of that calcium deposits around plaque and also mitigate further calcium depositing of plaque. So it'll help with your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the D3 and the K2. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. And it's really important to get a good toothpaste. Now, the toothpaste that I have on my store has no fluoride. Also, this toothpaste will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at the gum line, and help with gum health. Super important to have good oral hygiene. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This is the best toothpaste that you can buy. You can't buy anything better. So get this structural nano silver toothpaste. Get a few tubes of it for your household. Help support the work that I do. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos to get to my website. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Federal investigators say they found a fuel leak and several improperly installed parts inside the engine of an American Airlines jet that caught fire after landing in Denver back in March. Preliminary findings don't identify the cause of that fire, which was extinguished within a minute. 12 people were injured getting off that jet. Well, there's a court battle over Jimmy Buffett's $275 million estate.
Spending money to burn.
Buffett's widow Jane has gone to court to oust the co-trustee of the estate, an accountant and former business manager for the singer, and he's looking to remove her in a separate suit. She alleges the trust is producing far too little income. The co-trustee, Richard Mosenter, says in his suit he was a trusted advisor to Buffett and says the singer worried privately about his wife's ability to manage money. Steve Kathan, CBS News.
From the world of politics to the world of business, this is Balance of Power. live from Washington, D.C.
Jobs Day brings smiles on Wall Street and at the White House. Welcome to the Friday edition of Balance of Power as the monthly data sends stocks higher despite signs of a moderation in the job market. We're going to look under the hood with Mark Hamrick at Bankrate coming up. So much for burying the hatchet. President Trump and Elon Musk are still at it. The feud continues here. We're going to talk about potential national security risks around this with former Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman. And more with our political panel. Bloomberg Politics contributor Jeannie Shanzano is with us alongside Republican strategist Lisa Camuso-Miller. So let's get started, as always, with a look at Wall Street. The Friday trade, as I said, brings smiles. Just look at Charlie Pellet in New York.
Indeed. Solid, though not spectacular. That's the way some are summing up this morning's jobs report. We'll have a whole lot more on Balance of Power. But right now, the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all mentioning, as you say, on Jobs Friday. S&P 500 index now up by 1%, a gain of 59 points. The Dow up 394, up 0.9%. NASDAQ is advancing 231, Joe. That is a gain of 1.2%. The key takeaway, we are well off session highs, but gains nonetheless. The 10-year at 4.48%, with the 2-year 4.03%. Gold is now down $22 the ounce, a drop there of 0.7%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 2%, 64.61 a barrel on WTI, and Bitcoin is surging 4.6%, back above 105,000, 105, 119 right now on Bitcoin. So the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ are all advancing. As for the market backdrop, Stephanie Roth is chief economist at Wolfe Research.
Now we understand this whole taco concept, which is silly, but like it's true that Trump doesn't seem to want to intentionally tip the economy into recession, so companies can feel better about investing in this environment. They know there's less likely of a chance that the economy actually goes south, in which case, all right, my business is doing okay, now I just have to continue to invest and grow.
Stephanie Roth of Wolfe Research. Tesla shares higher after Elon Musk suggested making amends with President Trump, easing tensions after their public feud, but not over yet. We've got Dow Jones in the meantime reporting that President Trump is considering getting rid of his Tesla. Tesla shares up by 5.8%. Recapping stocks higher, S&P up 1%. Balance of Power continues right now. Friday edition. Back we go to Washington. We always say it, what a week, but once again, here he is. Joe Matthew.
Yeah, I guess I really must sound like a broken record. I say this to my poor wife every Friday. You have no idea. What a week. And I'll say that again a week from today. This one did feel special, though, didn't it? Elon Musk going to the mat with President Trump yesterday. It happened during the program. God knows what will happen today. It is high noon, after all. And that's why you join us every day on Bloomberg Radio, satellite radio channel 121, and on YouTube. Dial it up now, search Bloomberg Business News Live. You can always watch us as well on Bloomberg Originals. I'll get to the podcast. You can't hide from this program. We're onto something here, and it's Jobs Day, which, as I said earlier, brings smiles to Wall Street and the White House. The president feeling pretty good about these numbers, despite the fact that we are looking at moderation. They came in a little hotter than expected. Payrolls at 139,000. Unemployment holding at 4.2%, wage growth accelerating. So much for the recession. We spoke earlier with the Labor Secretary about this, of course, on Bloomberg. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer earlier on Bloomberg Surveillance. Here's how she framed it. Listen.
We are excited, 139,000 new jobs, and that President Trump, with his dedication and his leadership, really has beat expectations for the third month in a row. Our goal is to grow this economy and grow this workforce. And the president has done a wonderful job in accessing companies to invest in the workforce. And we're seeing it across the country.
Let's get into this because it's always about what's beneath the headlines that we're talking about here on this program when it comes to economic data. And Mark Hamrick's had a couple of hours to dig through the report. He's the Washington Bureau Chief, Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate, and I'm glad to say he's with us in studio today. Mark, it's great to see you.
Good to be with you.
So when's the recession? You know I'm supposed to ask you that.
Not today.
No, it's not today. But that was a conversation just a couple of weeks ago. Remember? Recession odds were rising. The tariff program destroyed the economy. This is actually looking pretty good. What's your take?
Well, backward looking, right?
Yeah.
So this is a snapshot from around the 12th of last month. I think recession odds are probably still elevated relative to what is nominal.
Yeah.
But, down from the 50% odds that we may have seen, early April. At Bankrate, much the same as with your audience, we're always trying to take a bit of a long-term view.
Sure.
I know for traders, those who are trying to get in and out of markets or positions, that's different. The vast majority of Americans need to be thinking about the long term, and part of that means saving for emergencies, for the inevitable rainy day, right? The rainy day isn't here right now, but what's the number one complaint about the economy? It's price levels. What is likely to go up in the current and intermediate terms? Price levels. So there's not going to be relief from that. And so if you go out, maybe not in front of this office in downtown Washington, but a little beyond the Beltway, ask people, how do you feel about the economy?
Yeah.
They're not feeling too good about it. And so to them, recession, you can have your recession definitions and keep it. We'll make our own judgments about how we're feeling about the economy.
Okay, fair enough. What are you seeing in the numbers here? Stronger than expected payrolls, steady unemployment rate is what the headline's going to read. When you start looking at wages and participation, what does that tell you about the stage of the market?
Well, first of all, I don't want to lean too far forward on the better than expected. The consensus that I was looking at was around 125,000.
Exactly.
We beat that by 14,000.
Sure.
No one should be going out buying champagne because
of course,
that.
absolutely.
The other,
and by the way, that could be revised in a month as very often.
That's perhaps the most important point, because this was the fourth straight month of downward revisions and the sharpest downward revisions that we've had in that series, minus 95,000 the previous 2 months. That takes a lot of the would-be luster off of this beating expectations.
Understood. Well, when you consider the potential impact of the Doge and federal workforce cuts, a couple of months ago, you were reading and hearing all the same stories I was. It was going to crater the job market in certainly areas like Washington, D.C. We still haven't seen the tens of thousands of job losses on the government level, have we?
They haven't showed up yet. Many of these people are still on severance. So
they're not claiming.
It's not showing up. And, the good news for those affected people is that, they would be looking for work at a time when the unemployment rate is still regarded as historically low at 4.2%. But let's wait till September, October and see what the jobless claims and that component look like. As you know, Challenger Gray and Christmas earlier in the week talked about accelerating job cut announcements in sectors where we hadn't been seeing those occupying the top two positions. That was services and retailing, and hundreds of thousands of Doge-related job cut announcements elsewhere. So I think, I'm not here to preach gloom and doom. I'm here to preach caution.
Sure.
And to look past the immediate headline numbers and try to think about a variety of scenarios that could be developing here in the second half of the year, which is weeks away.
Well, this is why we're asking these questions, Mark Hamrick. We heard from President Trump this morning a number of times. I'm going to ask you about his take on Jay Powell in a moment, but his first reaction was, America is hot. This is all caps. 6 months ago, it was cold as ice. Border is closed. Prices are down. Wages are up. Our own Michael McKee took a harder look at that and went back 6 months and found that none of that is actually factual. Prices are not down from 6 months ago. Wages are not up from 6 months ago. He's calling at the same time for a full point cut from Jay Powell. He's not going to get that, is he?
Well, first of all, how does he come to that conclusion or recommendation when on the one hand, he's talking about a robust economy?
Yeah, we're hot, but we need to cut.
And when do you cut by 100 basis points? In a crisis.
Yes, exactly. Can you imagine? Okay, let's talk about that. Imagine if the Fed announced today between meetings it was cutting by a full percentage point. What would happen to the market?
I mean, you'd have red lights spinning in here, and it'd be breaking news all day long.
It's been a long time since we've had a surprise.
We don't need to have
What's Jay Powell looking at, though, when he sees data like this, and you're looking ahead, urging caution 6 months from now, reminding us of a dual mandate? They're concerned about this job market, too.
Well, first of all, as you know, the expectation right now is we don't have any rate cuts probably for at least the next two meetings, which is June 18th, and then July, and then we get into mid-September. I think that they'll continue to say that, and we're, what, a week and a half away from the next announcement and news conference. I think they'll continue to say the monetary policy is in a good place. Obviously, that's why they're not moving it. And they want to be responsive to the way the economy unfolds in the months ahead. You know, he regards himself, and they have a take with the law that they are effectively bulletproof from the president's rhetoric. And so, if anything, he wants to maintain the credibility not only of the institution that he and his colleagues serve, but also the roughly year that he has left as chair. He wants to maintain the credibility of all that. So the last thing in the world that he's going to do is get into an Elon Musk style, retort.
I wasn't going to bring up Elon.
Well,
Mark.
I mean, that's another show,
It
right?
sure is.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're going to do that as soon as we change the topic. But look, you're right. A week from Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
We've got the next
18th
Fed meeting. You haven't said the word tariff yet. He's going to have to manage that. And the fact is, nothing's really changed on that front since the last Fed meeting. He's waiting for, what, July 9th to find out what the heck is going on.
Well, I think in the environment we're in, the tariffs are what we're going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future. If there's one tool in the president's toolbox that is on the top, aside from using social media, it's tariffs. And we could try to, Monday morning quarterback all we want on where they end up, where they're going, where they'll be Monday. But I think a baseline is you have to assume they're going to be with us for the foreseeable future in some form. And let's think about the fact that we know that, tariffs are a tax on imports that has to be paid by businesses and consumers, or some combination thereof. And they are going to be with us for the foreseeable future.
$2.8 trillion, the CBO says they'll raise in the next 10 years.
Yeah, what's the sustainability of that policy?
Well, they've already changed, but it's fascinating that we're trying to get a tax cut done while we're also essentially taxing Americans $2.8 trillion to pay for it. I'll get a lot of bad mail there, but maybe you can explain it to me. Mark, it's great to have you. Happy Jobs Day. The great Mark Hamrick at Bankrate, and a great conversation for you here to get things kicked off on the Friday edition of Balance of Power. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. You want to stay with us? Denver Riggleman is on the way in next. He's just back from Ukraine. This is Bloomberg.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the cleanse, the Max 14 or the Max 35. And what you do is you take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or so, and then swallow it. And what that's going to do is improve your oral cavity, help the health of your epithelial lining and your mucosal barrier in your oral cavity and in your oral pharynx. And it's going to help to boost up that immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14, the Max 35, or the cleanse. Now, you can also do the same thing for your dog. Put about a half a teaspoon in their food once a day, and you will help to boost up their immune system. Please go to my store and get the Gladiator Barley. Gladiator Barley will help to build muscle. It'll help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. It also stacks really well with Myotrol and Tumor Boost. It's a great way to build muscle and to get healthy. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Gladiator Barley. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right, so let's see what's going on in some of the other news. All right, let's play this from CNN. Break from historical trend. Economist reacts to recent grad unemployment rate.
Common sense says don't get weighed down by travel nonsense. Book with dollar instead. Brands evolve, and we provide the tools and environment to help you scale.
The economy has added jobs for 52 months in a row. That's an impressive streak of uninterrupted job growth. But one group may be finding it hard to feel optimistic because economists say that this is actually the worst job market for new college graduates since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, the unemployment rate for those who have just finished college education is higher than the national average. LinkedIn estimates that hiring for entry-level positions is down 23% when compared to March 2020, when COVID lockdowns began in many U.S. states. So here to help us understand this phenomenon better is Matthew Martin. He's a senior U.S. economist at Oxford Economics. Great to have you this morning, sir. We talk a lot, especially in the financial community, the financial journalism community, about the strength of resilience of the labor market these last few years. But clearly there's a disconnect with recent graduates. What's your research telling you about why?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me here today. Pleasure to be on the show. So our research, which is looking back to using data around 1980, takes a look at unemployment rates for recent college graduates versus the national unemployment rate. And for the most part, recent college grads usually tend to have a lower unemployment rate, specifically because of their higher educational attainment. Now, what we've seen over the last couple of years is that this isn't quite the case. And actually, the recent grad unemployment rate, which is for those aged 22 to 27 who have a bachelor's degree or higher, is actually above the national unemployment rate, which is really a break from historical trend. And what our research has shown is that, this is mainly in the tech sector. And so a lot of that just kind of goes back to after their post-pandemic surge of hiring in 2021, they're starting to normalize those rates. But there is some preliminary research that is pointing toward the fact that AI is starting to impact some of these roles, mainly because some of these jobs, that entry-level jobs that people are looking for, are predisposed to AI being able to displace them, or at least take over some of the tasks and roles that they might have been doing in those companies.
So that sort of feeds into the suspicion that I think a lot of people have had, that AI, that technology would sort of come for some jobs. I'm curious what you make of those who push back and say those fears are overblown and that perhaps AI actually creates jobs too.
Yeah, I think that's, when we're thinking about AI over the longer term, I think the research has shown that it's likely to create more jobs than it's going to displace in the long term. I don't think that's a lot of, encouraging news for those who are looking at the job market right now, where they're really seeing the downside to AI, where it's, making current, workers at companies more productive, allowing them to subsume some of these tasks that, entry-level positions would have done. So I think at the moment we're at a bit of a timing effect. Mm-hmm. We have businesses who are slowing hiring in general due to an uncertain economic outlook, but they're also looking to reduce their overall headcounts and potentially reduce their costs of their staffing. And so I think what we're seeing at the moment is, these entry-level positions, which are a bit more playing to the strengths of AI, coding, data analysis, and analyzing documents, things that entry-level positions might have really been key for, cutting your, starting to learn a new role at a company, like obviously does a lot of, entry-level positions do a lot of the grunt work. And sometimes this is what AI can really excel at the moment. So yeah. I think we're just seeing for these entry-level positions specifically, the downside to AI.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, just sort of like the timing of all of this. I think anyone who has graduated during a time of financial upheaval, whether it's immediately after COVID-19, for me, it was graduating not long after the great financial crisis, and can appreciate that it can sometimes take, maybe not in the case of COVID-19, but it can sometimes take years for the labor market to right size, for companies to start to feel comfortable hiring again. I'm curious, Matthew, what you think it'll take or how long it will take for the labor market to right size in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we would say at the moment is that it's likely, unfortunately, to get worse before it's likely to get better. As I mentioned before, businesses are really operating in a quite an uncertain period at the moment. So, going through expansion plans is likely to not be on the cards at the moment. So we're not likely to see, a large increase, particularly in this tech sector, of business demand. So until we start to see that turnaround, you're going to continue to have graduates. Computer science is still a large growing field of study. So you're going to continue to have a steady supply of workers into the labor market. I would say that 2026 and 2027 beyond, look like years where hiring should pick up. I think you'll also start to see college students move into fields that have more demand. One of the ones we highlighted is healthcare services. That's where there's a ton of job demand still. So I think you'll start to see, a natural shift away from the tech sector and not as much of an emphasis on those degrees, because if there's not a job to do it, then likely those college students are going to enter those fields.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a silver lining at all, at least from my perspective, is that you sort of learn how to become adaptable when you graduate in an environment like this, sort of by necessity. Really important points, Matthew Martin. Thank you. Appreciate you being on with us from Oxford Economics.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the the heirloom barley. The heirloom barley is similar to the gladiator barley, but the heirloom barley doesn't focus so much on strength and muscle building. The heirloom barley focuses more on the detoxification, bringing down inflammation, and soaking up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. You get a big scooper here, take a scooper a day or half a scooper, mix it with soft foods or filtered water or milk, or some people even put it in a smoothie, but take it once a day, and it'll help, again, to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation. That's important for your immune system and your cardiovascular system and your joints. You'll recover if you do work out quicker by controlling inflammation, and soaking up those free radicals with superoxide dismutase will slow down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley. Again, the gladiator barley is more focused on building muscle, and you also get all the benefits of the heirloom barley. The ones that don't want to build muscle, just get the heirloom barley. If you stack the gladiator barley with Boomer Boost or the heirloom barley with Boomer Boost, it helps even more so to control your A1C levels. You get the max benefit in controlling your A1C levels when you mix the gladiator barley with the Boomer Boost. Now, if you want to really max the effects of building muscle, taking Myotrol with the gladiator barley and the Boomer Boost is the best way to do it for your pre or post workout fueling source. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
You know all the guys I'm talking about here, and I'm really curious, Denver, your read on the MAGA reaction to all of this, because Steve Bannon has been an Elon hater all along. He actually predicted this was going to happen. By the way, you kind of did too. And I'm not trying to put you in the same boat as Bannon here, but when you hear about the celebrations, they're popping corks in MAGAville. What does that tell you about the state of the party here and what Donald Trump actually thinks about Elon Musk?
Well, I mean, first of all, Steve Bannon's a criminal. I think the only similarity between me and Steve Bannon is we both breathe oxygen. But I think Steve Bannon wanted this to happen because that's part of what his whole shtick is, right? It's always been anti-immigrant, even if it's Elon, and it's always been pro-autocracy. And I think that's a big thing. And Bannon seems to almost be leaning towards anti-technology, this weird traditionalist philosophy that I think people need to look up, this 1870 to 1913 thing they talk about. But I think what you're seeing, the rift in the party is real. And I think a lot of that has to do with Elon accusing Donald Trump of being in the Epstein logs. And by the way, Joe, I just want to bring this up to everybody if they haven't just sort of seen this in a common sense way. So if Elon Musk knew this, was he covering for somebody he thought was a pedophile from the beginning? It just doesn't make any sense, right? It's ludicrous. It's that instability stuff that you're seeing again. So I think for me right now, when you're looking at Steve Bannon calling for him to be deported, it's just that ludicrous, unserious childishness that you've seen throughout the MAGA movement for some time.
Of course, nobody knows what the Epstein stuff was about, and we have no way to verify any of that. Denver, we're talking national security on a day after you got back from Ukraine. And that was the original reason we reached out to you this week. I know that you found yourself in places like Odessa and Kyiv, listening to air raid sirens in the middle of the night, watching anti-aircraft fire light up over the city, watching Ukraine intercept drones and missiles from Russia. I want to ask you, about what's next here, because President Trump talked to Vladimir Putin yesterday and told the world that a very difficult period of time was coming here because Russia's going to hit back on that drone attack that Ukraine sent deep into Russia last week. What are you bracing for? And will it happen this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to brace for indiscriminate civilian deaths because Putin's a murderer. I mean, when you look at what Ukraine did with that deep drone attack on strategic bombers and bases throughout Russia, you're talking about legitimate military targets. What Ukraine needs to brace for are illegitimate civilian strikes, across Ukraine. Now, I was also in Kherson, and as you know, Joe, that is right there, right? I mean, I was on the right bank.
You were.
The left bank, the Russians are right across there with snipers, and that's where they fly their first-person view drones or their kamikaze drones out of that area. So I was there and in the bunker in Odessa when it was hit. I was also in Kyiv. I was also in Mykolaiv when the air raid sirens went off. I was in Kherson getting the hell out of there an hour before drone strikes there. So I think what you're going to see is a massive civilian retaliation by Putin, where he just indiscriminately strikes anything that he wants to based on what happened. But here's what Trump said that gets me. And again, Joe, I know me and you enjoy talking about this. He said he might just let them fight, which is the most ridiculous thing you can say is POTUS.
Like two kids in a schoolyard.
Like two kids in a schoolyard. But if you do just let them fight and European nations brace and fund Ukraine, Ukraine will win this war. And I've been telling people this since that deep strike, that the upper hand is now Ukraine. And I think the desperate measures you see with Putin, like hitting Kyiv last night, and my phone was lighting up from people that were there. I think with him hitting Kyiv last night with really one of the largest drone attacks in Kyiv in some time, I think shows the desperation of the Russian government. But I do believe that people need to watch out for Kherson, Kharkiv, but also Odessa. I'm worried about Odessa, Joe. I really am. And I think people need to brace for massive civilian casualties.
Well, I guess that begins to answer my next question, which is how prepared Ukraine may be for an onslaught. They know it's coming, Denver. Do they have the shells, the interceptors to deal with it?
I tell you what, it's going to be tough on them. They're always resource limited based on the fact that the United States government hasn't been as supportive. And I think people in the United States need to realize we've always sort of been doers. We just don't watch. And I think we need to rally as U.S. citizens in a country that's being attacked, but they do have the heart and the spirit, and they have better tactics and adaptability and a massive drone production asset line that it's unprecedented. I got to see it. And I think they do have superiority tactically on drone warfare, which is why you see the stalemate. So I think Ukraine is ready for the onslaught. But there was a quote from somebody, from a Ukrainian, and this is what she said. She says, "We do not hate the Russians. We just want them to leave us alone. But in order for us to have them leave us alone, we need to kill them." Now, that is how the Ukrainians think.
Wow.
If Russia leaves them alone, they're done. But if not, Ukrainians are the toughest, hardiest, adaptable people I've ever met. I've been all around the world, and what I saw in Ukraine over these last few days, do not bet against the Ukrainians. And if Trump just lets them fight, don't bet against the EU not funding them either. And I think that would be the worst thing for Russia right now, is for EU to fund Ukraine to fight. But the US needs to come in now. Now is the time.
Really interesting and contrarian take, Denver. It's not what I expected you to say. We have less than a minute. What are the odds that this retaliation, the next move by Russia, is nuclear?
I think that's why we double down now. I think that's why we send aid. I think that's a desperate measure by Putin. I don't think he'll go nuclear. They would be a pariah state. And I think at that point, I think other countries would go nuclear if he did, because you need to remember there's 9 nuclear countries. There just isn't one, just Russia and US. I think people need to understand there is nuclear deterrence out there, and there's not just Russia. So that would be very interesting if he did that, but they would be a pariah state, and I believe the consequences would be severe for Russia.
It's great to have you back on the program and in the country. Denver Riggleman, former Republican congressman from Virginia, U.S. Air Force Intelligence, retired, the CEO of RIG. Welcome home, Denver. We'll assemble our political panel next. Jeannie Shanzano is back with us today, along with Lisa Camuso Miller, as we try to get to the bottom of all of this on the fastest show in politics. This is Bloomberg.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver gel. The gels are dual purpose. You can use it as an aftershave. You can use it as a daily skincare. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, put it on your hands or on your, around your mouth, around your nose, around your eyes, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils, stays active for 5.5 hours. It's a dual purpose product. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right, let me go over the market here. The S&P 500 is trading at 5,994. VIX is trading at 17. The euro is trading at 1.13. Oil's trading at 64.74. BITO is trading at 21.10. Japanese yen is trading at 144.96. UCO is trading at 22.44. Gush is trading at 21.98. DRIP is trading at 10.34. Natural gas is trading at 3.749.
It's 12:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. Stocks heading to their highest since February. Bond yields are rising as morning's job data eases concerns about an imminent economic slowdown, steadying Wall Street in the aftermath of President Trump's market-moving war of words with Elon Musk. Right now, we do have Tesla shares up today by 5.8%. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, and our Mag 7 index all advancing. S&P right now up 52. That is a gain of 0.9%. The Dow up 345, up 0.8. And NASDAQ is up 210, For the NASDAQ Composite Index, a gain right now of 1.1%. The Mag 7 Index up by 2%. Again, Tesla climbing by 5.9%. The 10-year 4.48% with the 2-year 4.03% right now. Gold down $28 the ounce. Spot gold down 0.8%, 33.24. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.1%, 64.74 for a barrel of WTI. Bitcoin right now is surging 4.5%, just above $105,000 at $105,042 on Bitcoin. Circle Internet Group share price continues to increase a day after the stablecoin issuers more than doubled from the IPO price. Right now, we have got Circle Internet Group rallying by 39.7%. Another IPO to tell you about, Omada Health shares, they are climbing 37% in their trading debut. The company helps provide virtual care for people managing chronic conditions. Recapping, S&P up by 0.9%. Balance of power continues right now. Back we go to Washington once again. Your host, Joe Matthew.
Charlie, thank you so much. Watching Wall Street for us every day here on Balance of Power. And of course, on this day of days, we're watching stocks rise on good feels about the job market, the jobs day, bringing smiles to the White House as well. We're going to talk coming up at the top of the hour, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with Anna Wong from Bloomberg Economics and her take on the employment report today. Donald Trump needed something to feel good about. He couldn't have been too happy by the time he went to bed last night after the back and forth with Elon Musk. My goodness. The spat continues. We all woke up to headlines this morning that they were going to break bread, maybe come in off the ledge here. There were stories about brokering a peace and a phone call that was going to happen today, not necessarily between the president and the richest man in the world, but that the White House would get on the line with Elon to start hosing this thing down. The press secretary was out on Fox last night calling for cooler heads to prevail. But of course, we know who we're talking about here. And so it goes on with the reaction from MAGA, quite remarkable. Steve Bannon essentially calling for Elon Musk to be deported and the government take control of SpaceX and Starlink. We don't think that that's about to happen. I am curious about the motivations here. And as we talk with our panel, we're going to bring you back a couple of months to actually listen to some of the things that Donald Trump was saying about Elon Musk, because the whole line now in Washington is that he's upset they took the EV credits out of the big, beautiful bill. But Donald Trump had consistently told us that they weren't even talking about that. So you wonder, why now and how did this happen so quickly? Denver Riggleman just pointed out some of the potential national security concerns that we have that could stem from this. And that's where we start our conversation with our political panel. Jeannie Shanzano is back, our Democratic analyst, Bloomberg Politics contributor with the Center for the Study of the Presidency and Congress, and Lisa Camuso-Miller, our Republican strategist, former RNC Communications Director, host of the Friday Reporter podcast. Great to see you both. Jeannie, I don't know where you are today. I mean, you've had a little bit of time to think about this. You're chuckling about it already. Is it a distraction, or could this actually change business at the White House? How wild is this going to get?
Yeah, I'm chuckling in a very sad way because, of course, it's D-Day. And 81 years ago, there were these selfless heroes who land on the beach. And you come forward to where we are now, and you've got the wealthiest man and the president yelling at each other on social media. So it is a bit of a sad day in my mind. And you know, this is not an atypical fight that you see in the White House. But I think the difference is here, it played out, and we watched it live on Bloomberg play out on social media, you know, in a span of just a few minutes, if not just an hour, and it got so ugly. I think President Trump has been clear in his, you know, brief statements today. He spoke to a few reporters that he wants to put this behind him, and he wants to focus on the bill, and I think that's the right approach, but it may be a little bit tougher than he wishes to do that.
Yeah. Lisa, the president says he's moving on. Isn't that what you say the day after you have a big breakup? But MAGA is not. Steve Bannon says he and Peter Navarro are recommending, and he says, I hope that the president is drafting executive orders as we speak to implement the Defense Production Act, seize SpaceX and Starlink, put them under government management, watch him squirm as the investigations are conducted. He wants investigations into his immigration status, security clearance, drug use, his dalliances with China and Russia. I get the vibe from MAGA here, but does the president agree with that, Lisa?
President doesn't have to, Joe. We could have predicted this 6 months ago. I've been saying it forever. There wasn't enough room for more than one main character in this sitcom. And so this is absolutely predicted. The president will move on. He will focus on what he needs to focus on. And the MAGA folks will chew him up and spit him out and have a good time with it, because I expect that what will happen, and what it looks like is happening, Joe, is that House Republicans and Senate Republicans are lining up with the president, and they're moving along with business as usual, because it seems more than anything that this is sour grapes from Elon Musk. Elon Musk is unhappy with the way that the breakup happened, and he's acting foolishly, to Jeannie's point. She's not wrong about that. I'm with her on that one. But this is precisely what we expected to see happen here. And these are two very big personalities that I expect that unless this quiets down and goes away, the person that will look like the most foolish will be Elon Musk, and the one that will prevail clearly will be the president.
I am curious when it comes to motivations, what we're talking about here. Everybody says it's about the EV tax credit. Jeannie, you've heard that. He's upset. He runs an electric car company. And, you know, he said yesterday on Twitter he didn't care about it. But you know who else said that? Was Donald Trump. Let's go back to March now, because remember, there were huge questions about conflicts of interest. Is Elon going to try to mangle the bill as he runs Tesla? Let's go to the cabinet room, the 25th of March. Donald Trump, listen.
Elon has never asked me for a thing. I mean, I got rid of the electric car mandate. I have no idea how that affects him, but possibly not good. I don't know. But he's never asked me for a thing. And I think that's an amazing tribute. Elon's a patriot. We want to thank you very much for the job you're doing. Thank you very much.
Round of applause. I think, Jeannie, that was your producer James is right. That was the two-hat day. He was wearing two MAGA hats. What are we talking about then? The president said it in the driveway as well when they were selling Teslas, that Elon never even brought it up. Do you believe that's what motivated him to break up with the president?
I think it is a whole host of factors. You know, Joe, it seems to me that this is a little bit like when you're in a relationship and you're like, oh, she's so wonderful or he's so wonderful. Then you break up. Not so much. There were all kinds of bad things we never told you about. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. And Joe, by the way, you said to Lisa, you move on after a relationship. No, you have to eat ice cream for 24 hours and watch sad movies. So maybe that's what Trump is doing today. But, you know, I think there are very serious issues that come to the forefront here. I do think that in the short term, Donald Trump will likely get this bill through. I agree with Lisa on that. I think the problem for MAGA, the Republicans, is long term on this thing. So you get this thing through. How do you then go and sell it? What, by the way, is the economic policy of MAGA when you have this enormous divide in the Republican Party that we've seen play out throughout the debate on this bill, with the Steve Bannons of the world on the one side, and then you get the deficit hawks on the other. So there's a lot of serious questions here. And oh, by the way, collateral damage. People like J.D. Vance, who's forced, because he wants to run in 28, not to these guys and hope they both invest in him. So I think there's a lot more damage to go around here as we go forward politically.
You picture J.D. Vance up there at the Naval Observatory taking the phone off the hook. Draw the blinds. You mentioned the ice cream. It is Ice Cream Friday here at Bloomberg. Lisa, they were eating ice cream together in the White House a couple of weeks ago, right? The Elon Musk told this story in an interview. He was sleeping in the Lincoln bedroom. Donald Trump told him where to find the ice cream down the kitchen in the middle of the night. It reminds us of how personal this relationship got and how much Elon Musk knows about Donald Trump. There could be a tell-all. There could be leaks to folks like Vladimir Putin, who we know that Elon Musk has been talking to on the regular for the last 2 years, at least until he got into the White House. His work with China. How exposed could Donald Trump be on a personal level here, whether it's a tell-all book, a soap opera, or when it comes to geopolitics, Lisa?
You know, Joe.
This is the problem I have with Joe on Bloomberg, is that he can't say anything positive about Trump. Not one thing. He's such a, I tell you, I can't stand Joe and Bloomberg.
On social media. If he knew how to deploy some really specific tactics that could be harmful to this administration, I have to believe that he would have done them in a very, very different way than throwing a gigantic tantrum on social media. It just, to me, doesn't seem that way. So yes, I don't discredit some of the other points that have been made today and over the course of the week on your show, Joe. It does definitely raise questions about what access he had to information about privacy information to American citizens and data that he had access to when he stepped away from the White House. Did he maintain access to those kinds of files? That's concerning. That's probably the area that we will see this administration now turn their sights on as to whether or not Elon Musk has access to that kind of information, because that's where the danger happens. That's where the worries are. I don't necessarily see him having any kind of impact in any other way other than in that space. Because even though Donald Trump does not have a close circle of friends, because he is the kind of person that is the first person all of the time, everywhere. So he does not keep a close circle. And I suspect that even though he and Elon Musk seem to have had a closer connection, that President Trump was pretty careful about how much Elon knew about him specifically on purpose.
Why does MAGA hate Elon Musk, Lisa?
Well, I'm not sure that they hate Elon Musk, except that they always have put Donald
You heard what Steve Bannon said. I mean, the F words I can't even read on the air here, and he's been really upset about Elon being in the White House to begin with. Is it the fact that he's an immigrant?
Jealous.
Is it the fact that he's got a green card?
Bannon is saying these things because he's jealous, because Bannon was kicked out too.
Comes down to is that Elon Musk was given a very, very big platform, bigger than even the vice president and Steve Bannon, who were main characters in an earlier episode of this season that we've been watching here in terms of MAGA. So I think the opportunity is that Elon Musk's star rose really fast, and now it's coming crashing down, and MAGA is having a terrific time at kicking him all the way down the ladder as he goes.
Mm-hmm. So Cece brings up an interesting point here. MAGA was supposed to be the new generation, the new iteration of the Republican Party. Here, Jeannie, is there now a divide in MAGA? So there's a new and an old MAGA? Does Elon Musk break this whole thing apart?
Yeah, you know I have to give a shout out to Cece. I think that the reality is that this underscores an enormous divide that has been brewing in the Republican Party. And that is exemplified by somebody like Elon Musk versus somebody like Steve Bannon. Let's not forget that Elon Musk made his fortune in part by free and fair, well, let's put aside the fair, free trade, for instance. He doesn't want to close, and I'm not, that was no cut, but I'm just saying by free trade, let's put it that way. And he does not want the borders closed. I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the economic divide between the Republicans that underscores an enormous question so many of us have asked for so long. What is MAGA policy towards the economy? Because so far, MAGA has been pretty much what Donald Trump said it is. But if you listen to J.D. Vance last night, he's talking about MAGA, as many people do, as a movement. And it's presumably a movement that outlasts Donald Trump. So what does that mean from a policy perspective? And we're seeing those fights play out in real time. And that creates an enormous tension. And this is true anytime a movement gets big enough that there are factions. So I do think the tension, and you mentioned the Politico piece, and you see all the F words all over it, that tension is very real. It's not just personal. It is also policy driven. And I do think the migration issue, the immigration issue is real. Elon Musk is an immigrant, and Steve Bannon has said horrific things in that regard.
Wonder what happens to the...
Welcome to America. The S&P 500 is trading at 5,980. And it's starting to kind of just peter off, you know, for the trading session here. VIX is trading at 1720. Oil is trading at 64.69. It's testing, trying to, you know, it went a little bit above the 64.75. It went as high as 64.80 and then went back down. So definitely 65 is a resistance level. What did surprise me is that there's kind of like a triple top, and then it was retested and broke a little bit and then came back down. So I think it's just going to peter off. Now, I think what's going to happen is just that the traders, especially in the commodity space, energy commodity space, is going to wait it out for the weekend to see what happens with Russia. If they hit extensively, then oil might pop up a little bit and then come back down. You might see a break in 65 and then come back down to it. So we'll see. But I'm still holding that about, there's a trading range, a new trading range that is developed where it used to be 60 handle to about a 63 handle. Now I think it's around a 62 handle to about a 64 handle, maybe even a very low 65 handle. Now, I think 65 is going to be, a decent resistance level because it's around, anything that has a zero in it has like 60, 65, it's like even, right? 65.0 or a 60.0, right? When it has a zero slightly right at the right or the left of especially on the left of the decimal point, it becomes a major support or resistance level, just psychologically. So with that, not even, but round numbers. We like, our brains like thinking things in round numbers, right? And so we want something like 95 or 60 or 55. We don't want 55.25 or anything like that. So 65 should be a decent resistance level. So I think we're on the upper end of it. I'm a little surprised I didn't see it drift. I was expecting some sort of like harmonic dissipation that drifted slowly downward. There's a harmonic dissipation. So there's different ways to explain a price curve. So today's news did a jump diffusion for oil, the oil futures market. So the jump is positive, a positive jump diffusion. So you have a positive jump, and then you have this harmonic dissipation. Now, what I thought was going to happen was a jump to jump. It diffused and drifted down. That's what I was expecting, but it didn't drift down. It jumped and harmonically dissipated it at a new level, a new energy level. So it's staying at around that 64, it's bouncing around between 64.3 to 60, or maybe, 60.8. So I was a little surprised it didn't drift down. I think there's a little bit of event risk issue here with Russia, but also the stock piles that are at Cushing are probably low, and that this being bolstered because of that. So the trading range may not be 62 to 64 handle. The trading range may actually be maybe a 63 to maybe a 65 handle. So we'll have to see what happens on Monday.
Thinks that's about to happen.
Yeah, no, the Fed's not even thinking about cutting 25 basis points at this time, let alone 100 basis points all at once. But that's what President Trump is advocating for, as he continues to allege that the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, is too late. Hence why he says go for a full point. He says that will be rocket fuel. The question is what kind of fuel the economy really needs when we look at 139,000 print on payrolls, at least for last month. We do have to consider downward revisions, though, when we look holistically at the picture of the labor market.
4.2% unemployment feels pretty good just weeks after economists were ratcheting up odds on a recession. We're not hearing calls like that today. Granted, there are concerns about a slowdown or a moderation at least. We still haven't really seen the impact of DOGE cuts if they ever emerge. And it is an interesting moment at the economy, but not one that would call for an emergency rate.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the drops and the lozenges. You can get the drops in 3 flavors. You can get it in honey and lemon, cherry, and also in blueberry. The drops have 100 drops in each bag, and they're very high quality. You get that irritation, take it right away. Make sure you have some at home and at work. You never know when you need them. And I also have lozenges, which are larger. You get 21 in each bag. You can get that in elderberry zinc that I have in stock. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Tesla is having a better day than it did yesterday, not recovering entirely that 14% loss, but still we're up on the day along with the broader equity market. So let's get a check on those markets now and turn to Charlie Pellet up in New York. Hey, Charlie.
And good day from New York. We have got Tesla shares advancing now by 5.8% of the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ solidly in the green right now. The jobs report seen as solid but not spectacular. A whole lot more on that report coming up with our Anna Wong in just a moment here on Balance of Power. The S&P right now up 48. That is a gain of 0.8%. The Dow up 309, up 0.7%, while the NASDAQ Composite Index up 201, up by 1%. Again, Tesla up 5.8%. Our Mag 7 index up now by 2%. All 7 members of that index, by the way, are advancing. The 10-year 4.48%, the 2-year 4.03%. Gold retreating by $29 the ounce to $33.23, a drop of 0.9%. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.8%, $64.52 for a barrel of WTI. Bitcoin now surging by 4.4% at 104,901 on Bitcoin. Tesla leading gains on those Mag 7 index shares after the electric vehicle maker rebounded after yesterday's 14% plunge. Again, Tesla shares climbing now by just about 5.7%. Again, recapping, S&P up 0.8% for on-demand news 24 hours a day. Subscribe to Bloomberg News now wherever you get your podcasts. And Balance of Power continues right now. Back to go to Washington. Once again, your hosts, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lyons.
All right, Charlie Pellet with a look at these Jobs Day markets. Thank you so much. A very happy Jobs Friday to everyone joining us here on Bloomberg TV, radio, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals, wherever you find us on this Friday. We, of course, are coming to terms with the data we got earlier this morning. 139,000 print on payrolls, which, of course, the White House is touting as a labor market that is still strong, even if you do need to look at revisions also when we consider the full picture here, and also the fact that we're seeing these job gains really concentrated in specific sectors. And we're going to get into this more with Anna Wong of Bloomberg Economics in just a moment. But we had a chance to catch up here on Bloomberg with the Labor Secretary, Lori Chavez-DeRemer, about this payrolls print earlier today. And this is how she framed the figures.
And sometimes you gotta have the stool stand on several different legs. The president does a wonderful job at negotiations. The president will have a conversation with the Treasury Secretary, and he will determine when it's time to put the pressure on to lower those interest rates to make sure that we're still adding to the American economy and protecting the American worker.
That's where we start our conversation with Anna Wong. Always a pleasure to compare notes on a Jobs Day with Bloomberg Economics chief U.S. economist. Anna, is this being framed properly in terms of moderation and good feels on Wall Street that this economy might be actually in better shape than a lot of folks thought?
Yeah, so notice how the bond market reacted in an outsized way to just 13,000 upside surprise. I think that what this tells me is that the bond market and a lot of traders were positioned for a very weak print coming in. And what we're seeing is more of an unraveling of these positions as opposed of suddenly this jobs report inspired confidence in the labor market. Because when you look at the numbers, the 3-month moving average of monthly job gains is only 135,000. And before this jobs report, even with our expected lower jobs creation in May, we thought that the 3-month trend was 153. And of course, if you use the consensus forecast coming in, their expected 3-month average would be more like 170,000. So the trend, basically, the revisions, the 95,000 jobs downward revisions, led to a trend job growth pace that's actually lower than what everybody thought. So I would say that on net, the takeaway from this jobs report is actually it's weaker than what most people thought.
Well, especially when we consider the kind of sectors where we're seeing hiring versus where we're not. Very heavy concentration in leisure, hospitality, and healthcare, not so much in the other areas of the economy.
Yeah, so we actually had expected that leisure and hospitality would be a weak point, and also transportation and warehousing, given the steep drop in imports containers volume. So I actually thought that the fact that jobs are coming from there is a bit suspicious, and was signify that there will be downward revisions. We saw that most of the downward revisions in the last 2 months was in the transportation and warehousing sector. Last month, based on the printed data, you would have thought that that sector added jobs, but they are all revised away today.
The federal government lost 22,000 jobs in May. Is that the Doge, and is that as bad as it gets?
So that part, we actually expected that, partly because every month you have a natural attrition rate of the federal workforce of roughly 13,000. And without being replaced, as there's this federal hiring freeze, you would naturally see at least 13,000 jobs, federal workers leaving the workforce.
Just through attrition.
Right, through attrition. And then on top of that, you have maybe 7,000 more from Doge. And we know for a fact that many people are indeed being laid off from Doge, and they are not necessarily being paid. The new tranche of federal workers that are laid off are not being paid till the end of the fiscal year.
So how is the Fed looking at all of this, Anna? And I ask this knowing that President Trump is looking at the Fed, having today taken to True Social to say too late at the Fed, which is how he refers to Chairman Jerome Powell, is a disaster. He goes on to say, go for a full point. Rocket fuel. Is there anything in this data that suggests the Fed will be thinking about cutting even a quarter point, let alone 100 basis points?
Right. It's interesting because the administration is characterizing this job report as strong, yet recommending one point of cuts, which would be a panic cut if the Fed were to go for that. So the Fed is more focused on the inflation print. We are getting the CPI report next Wednesday, and Wall Street is very fixated on the CPI report right now.
Interesting. The president isn't going to stop teasing or urging the Fed chair to do what he wants them to do. What does the bond market think about this? Are we still taking this seriously, or are we getting to the point where there's not much reaction to it? Powell.
Okay. Yeah. I think we have been seeing just small term premium being added the more Trump tweets about Fed policy. But I think for the bond market, the more important thing is this growth fear narrative. It seems like they're just responding very outsized in an outside fashion to any hints of a recession or weaker hard data.
All right, Anna Wong of Bloomberg Economics, where she's our chief U.S. economist, joining us on this Jobs Day. Thank you so much. And of course, Joe, when we consider what the bond market is looking at here, it's not just questions around the data and what it means for monetary policy, but as we've been discussing for weeks, if not months now, they're also worried about fiscal policy and the potential deficit impact of the bill still working its way through Capitol Hill. And in that way, the bond market and Elon Musk might be a little bit aligned, as remember, this whole big breakup.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements I have. Let me do another market update. The S&P 500 is trading at 5,983. So we're not going to be, most likely we will not close above the 6,000 mark here, but we're getting close. We're really getting close here. Intraday, it was as high as 6,016. So most likely we'll see the break of 6,000 next week. VIX is trading at 17.09. Euro is trading at 1.13. Oil is trading at 64.49. And BITO is trading at 20.99. Yen is trading at 144.8. I'd like to see it above the 145 mark. And I still think oil is probably in the upper range of the new trading range, and it's probably going to go down next week. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplement that I have here that will soak up free radicals. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. It's going to soak up the free radicals and help with the mitochondrial health. It'll boost up the ATP, and your cells will have less stress. It'll perform better. Your tissues will perform better. That's good for your organ systems and your endocrine system and your immune system. and also your vascular system, because by soaking up those free radicals, especially in the vascular system, you're going to reduce the chances of LDL oxidized, and reduce less LDL that's been oxidized means less plaque buildup. So that's important. Just soak up those free radicals and stop that plaque formation. And neural health is going to be super important. So pay attention. Taking C60 is going to help the health of those neurons. It's going to help with the mitochondria in the neuron. It's going to reduce the stress of the neuron by soaking up those free radicals. Your ATP will increase, and with healthy neurons and healthy mitochondria in the neuron, you're going to have neurons that fire properly. You'll have the neurotransmitters that are created, and you're going to have the positive neuroplasticity. And by reducing stress in the neuron, you're increasing the chances of supporting the myelin sheath, which is super important. So please go to my store and get the C60. It's an antioxidant that will help to slow down the aging process. It's a part of a pillar of my protocol, what I call the core. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Make sure you take a teaspoon a day every day. It's better to take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. And if you're going to work out, take it before your workout, so you're soaking up the free radicals during that workout, and you're going to recover quicker from the workout. So take a teaspoon a day every day, really important. And what you're going to notice is you're going to have more energy, and your systems are just going to be performing better. Your immune system will perform better. Your endocrine system is going to perform better. Your neural health will be better. And if you do this regularly for a decent period of time, you're going to notice that you're slowing down the aging process. And if you look at some of the key things that happen when people get older, they start to build up free radicals, their mitochondrial health goes down, their energy levels go down, they have atrophy, they start having bone density problems, they start having memory problems. So you want to target by doing a holistic health protocol, target all these different things that are related to aging and mitigate them. And a big part of that aging process is a buildup of free radicals. So you want to soak those up with strong antioxidants, and C60 is a very potent antioxidant. So that's the broadcast that I have for today. We've been going on Rumble for almost 4 hours and 30 minutes, 24 minutes or so. I greatly appreciate you watching. Please make sure that you subscribe to my channels. The links are in the description of this video and all my videos. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe, share the links, ask your social media to subscribe so I can reach a larger audience, to inform them how the markets are performing, how to be able to benefit from that, and also to improve your health. And then, this show deals with a lot of breaking news. Today there wasn't that much breaking other than the economic data, but the ones that have been watching over a long period of time, you've noticed that anything can happen during the show. So thank you for listening, and have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. I'll have another set of videos for you this weekend going over issues with the Chinese and the students at University of Michigan. And I think I'm scheduled. I think this Sunday is going to be a live show with John Hogue. So stay tuned for that. It's scheduled for Sunday at 10 p.m. New York time. So we'll be taking live calls with XSpaces, and we live stream on YouTube. So please participate in that show. That's on Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.